faced.
Can you give me the? I could easily do it myself, but I think you probably could do it quicker. Just pass
It's
me your
already
Twitter
live.
handles.
Oh yeah. Um,
Fill it in the Twitch.
it should be in the tweet, the Twitter handles. By the way, hey everyone,
Okay, all right.
this is Shill Phish with Spellsfired.com. This is another Spellsfired stream. I set this up on behalf of Oliver and Remipunx. And of course, Remipunx is missing in action, but maybe she'll hop on later, maybe not. Regardless, we're going to go forward with the show. But with me tonight, I have Mr. Oliver.
Hello.
I have Adeel as well.
Hey guys, what's up?
Well, not much. And then there's me, Shill Phish. So we got a small cast today. Maybe Scanner will jump in, maybe he won't. But anyway, let's jump straight into it. What is the current situation of Gamergate? Where the hell are we? Are we winning?
Like, we're winning. Of course we're winning. But it's just like, anger is pretty rampant right now. It's like, especially with what's happened in the past 2 days. Like, that's what I see from my perspective anyway.
Well, what major things has happened in the past few days for anyone who's been out of the loop for a bit?
Okay, well, let's see. Milo dropped another article. Eric Kane talked about Gamergate. That article was actually extremely well written, and he actually represented us pretty well, which I was very happy about. Then we have the fact that today.
Are you talking about Eric Kane, who dropped an article? And he said that Gamergate is a consumer revolt, not a hate mob?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Okay.
And then we just got the developer's perspective on the Escapist, the male developer's perspective on the Escapist, which was, good.
I was actually reading into that. There was a stream earlier that was saying that there's a little bit of a tussle between Archon and Tim Schafer about the Escapist article that was released, and it wasn't necessarily a male-female split. It was because in the female part that's coming up is actually all females, whereas the first part is mostly male, admittedly, but there is a company that is represented as a company speaking in general, and that also employs females to do so. To say that it was all male would be inaccurate and wrong, and that's why they didn't go with it.
Interesting. Well, and especially recently because they caved into pressure from outside sources. I'm not going to name any names. People are just angry right now that Roguestar's article, Roguestar's piece on the article was dropped completely from those developer interviews. And people are pretty angry about that as well right now.
Definitely. Do you have something to add, Oliver?
Are you sure that his piece was dropped from the other developers? I mean, did this just happen within? Because I know it was there. I read it.
Yeah, recently got dropped. Actually, Roguestar actually pinned the archived link to it, but it's not there anymore. It's gone.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yep.
Was there an edit put in? Did they put a reasoning in for their edit at all, or was it just kind of like a stealth, maybe nobody will notice sort of change?
No.
Oh my. Yeah, I'm seeing that now. Yeah, it's just flat out removed. That's what it says. Removed. Like, wow. Okay.
Is there an editor note?
Yes, there's an editor note. It says, we have removed the testimony of Slade Villena, known as Roguestar, after we received evidence that he has harassed some contributors to the Escapist. Due to our strong policy against all harassment and abuse, Villena's opinions will no longer be presented alongside those of his colleagues.
And what do you feel about that, Oliver?
Wow, that's conflicting. I mean, I haven't seen the allegations against Roguestar here in question. Like, they're just saying, oh, evidence of this. Well, I don't know what that evidence is, so it's not really fair for me to be able to comment on that. but I don't think that even with certain behavior, of course, there's always a line for people, but I'm not particularly sure. Like, again, I have to see this stuff in order to go, oh, now I understand why you did that. From this current angle and perspective, it looks bad,
Yeah, I mean, definitely, we need to see more to understand. A lot of it really definitely hinges on our faith in the escapists and how they can make the call on a sticky situation such as this.
Yeah. Actually, from what I've noticed, I believe Roguestar actually asked Greg Tito directly, like, why was his article dropped? Was there any evidence correlating to that? But he didn't get a response. I feel the guy at least deserves a response.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's that idea of, well, if we tell Roguestar and then he tells everyone else, maybe they'll start a whole new hate campaign. And I can see the reasoning for that. I'm personally disgusted by it because, I mean, for one, I don't endorse harassment. But we need to understand that harassment is a very umbrella statement. I mean, what the hell is even harassment these days? I've seen harassment allegations simply because someone asked a question. I can understand if it was unsolicited, but still, that's a bit of a stretch, and it kind of waters down what real or actual harassment is. And furthermore, if something someone said in the past is fair game to completely outright censor them on the same day that the article released, that's kind of fucked up. I mean, that means nobody's safe. I mean, if I could interview Lee Alexander and be like, oh, well, she said this back in 2006 or whatever the hell, time to pull it down. That's just nonsense. To me, at least.
No, I completely agree. Another thing that like about the Escapist article, like in general, is just the fact that it got taken down so fast. Like that's what's something that really bothers me. It got taken down within 24 hours. Like we didn't have that. Like when we were asking these said questions, like when we were asking the escapists to give us a shot, listen to what we have to say, it took us around 2 weeks, like the Gamergate movement as a whole. But this got taken down in less than 24 hours.
You never know. It could have been. I mean, Rogue touched on it in a quote debate, and if they spoon-fed the escapists some of the IRC logs, it would be a very much pull the trigger, and it's very easy to cherry pick that kind of stuff and present it in the worst possible light. I guess for me, a lot of it definitely hinges on if the content of the interview itself was trying to promote harassment. If it was like, all right, Roguestar, how do you feel about Gamergate? And he's like, fuck Lee Alexander. We need to go after her and send her emails. That's one thing, and I would understand pulling that or editing it. But if it was very much just him giving his opinion on the movement itself, that's kind of fucked up in my eyes. Definitely need to see what this evidence is at the least, but at the same time, I understand that the escapist is in a difficult position because revealing this evidence would probably also require revealing who revealed it. I mean, maybe it wouldn't 100%, but if it was an IRC log, we would know that it came from literally who. There's just no questions about it, and that's who we'd go after. So it's a very dangerous situation to play with.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I don't want to bring literally who into this conversation again. Like, if it does implicate that it was her, like, I would personally say not to go after her. Just let her go. She just wants attention at this point. At least that's my opinion on it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also very, very important that we do not speculate. I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios that could come up. It's just, this is what we see on the surface, and I think that it would kind of do a disservice to speculate, well, maybe it was because of this or because of that. I mean, let's put it this way. I'm sure if you wanted to know what these allegations were, well, I don't know. Did they talk to Slade at all? Like, I mean, since then, since it got pulled down, has anyone actually spoken to Slade and say, do you know what they're talking about? Did they specifically tell you X, Y, Z?
I saw Slade flat out calling, I think it was Archon, out on Twitter saying, I'm right here. Tell me why it was pulled. And whether or not the conversation went somewhere, I haven't been following it that closely.
Right. That's really the position we're just kind of in this weird moment where a thing happened, but we just need more information before people can comment or even act or do anything of that nature. So I think that would be the safe route because we don't know,
Yeah. Do you think it's an interesting choice to go with based upon the fact that they were kind of the big dog in the playground here with regards to keeping a forum open to discuss Gamergate as opposed to other outlets very much closing the gate as fast as they could?
Repeat that last part again. You cut out. I'm sorry.
Do you think it's interesting or even controversial or hypocritical to censor this after they were very much part of the vanguard, the forefront of allowing discussion of Gamergate through their own forums?
Well, here's what I think it is. I don't think escapists I don't think that they showed up to specifically say, we're in favor of Gamergate and all this. They saw the feedback and they said, got a point. There's some stuff to fix. Okay, let's go ahead and go and address it. People can talk about this here because it's a thing. It's happening. And I think that was it. I don't think it was meant to be, at least from that perspective, I don't think it was meant to be like this huge point of view or a huge stance. They're just saying this is a safe, neutral space for anyone who just wants to discuss things going on in gaming. And so I wouldn't necessarily call it hypocritical. If anything, I would call it really interesting because I'm a human being. Just my natural curiosity says, what actually happened? Like, what is it what are the events that you're specifically referring to that caused you to pull a developer's opinion from your setup? Here's what I do find to be a bit of an issue. All I'm saying is, let's name a couple developers. Randy Pitchford, Cliff Bazinski, Dave Jaffe, all guys who have said really inflammatory stuff in the past at one time or another in their careers, right?
If I can cut in, I think everyone's said something bullshit at some point. I mean, everyone I've ever been friends with or loved, I have hurt them with my words. But
right.
Go on, Three Dogs.
So, so if they said something or, were doing certain things, like, would you have suddenly pulled the article on them? Would you have pulled their opinion? Like, that's all I want to know. Like, I'm just saying, if we're just talking about developers' experiences and with Gamergate, my question is, I want to know what it was that, in your opinion, invalidates his opinion on what he saw. Like that's what's weird. Like whether or not he's engaged in questionable behavior or not, in your opinion, does that suddenly invalidate his point of view on certain things? And if so, what are the circumstances that lead to you making that decision? People might not even disagree with you. They might be like, "Oh, that makes sense. I see what I see what happened here. I see why you made that decision." But right now, we're just running around in the dark on that one.
Yeah, we could very well. That could be the end of it. I mean, we could just never hear from it again, really. They made the decision. They won't, spend so much time dancing around it. You brought up an interesting point that I want to address to you, Adeel, and that was if it were, Oliver said David Jaffe, for example, but you could insert any major developer that you want who have said something inflammatory in the past. Do you think there would be a slower decision or no decision at all to pull what they said if it were a more prestigious developer?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. Like, personally, I think it would either be a really slow decision instead of a no decision. Like, I think if people were outraged enough, because it's hard to say. Like, depending on the outrage, like how many people are actually angry at his previous comments in the past, like, it might be a slower decision to take down the article itself. I don't think anybody is safe from criticism, at least from my point of view. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, definitely no one's safe from criticism.
Well, it sounds like what you're talking about is the outrage quotient. Like, well, it really does depend. It's, yeah, you could be a huge developer, but you piss off enough people, and anyone is going to pull anything at any time for any reason. It really is about the number of people you've made angry in direct relation to your fame levels or your prestige. I'm trying not to laugh here because it's so funny, but yeah, that's some serious mathematical business there.
Yeah, there's no hard math maybe to it, but it is a key factor for sure. And it's seen on both sides, really. I mean, even amongst the streamers, there's talk of like, oh, well, you're not popular enough, so you can't come on the stream with Gamergate and stuff like that. But I'm not going to talk about that necessarily. What about Gamergate now? Do you think we're on the up and up still? Do you think this is kind of a bad sign for the movement when an article like this can be pulled from the Escapist? Are we on a downward slope, perhaps?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. If anything, Gamergate is on a hell of a slope upwards. We had some huge stuff happen over the past week. We've had just the thunderclap, boom, went off, and it pulled tons of people in with information. They're like, so this is what you guys are angry about. That makes sense, we had a huge success in that regard. If you just kind of observe and see all the different articles that have come down just over the past week, like the Kathy Young article that I talked about in my own stream yesterday. Eric Kane's articles are, much more even-handed and things like that. It's the real story is starting to be told. And considering that Gamergate was kind of in a credibility deficit for going on 2 months, and then this week we finally start getting even-handed, tellings of this whole incident, and we're like, hell yeah. No, it means that we're making progress. It means that things are moving forward, and that's just great. I guess it's not the same victories that people want. It's the difference between, it's like looking at a baby and going, well, this baby can't run a marathon, and it's just like, well, easy, man. It's a baby. And you're like, well, but he can't run a marathon. It's like, dude, look, he just came out, like, he doesn't even know how to use all his fingers yet. But if we can get this baby to walk, then we're really in good shape, because it's about the potential for anything. And right now, what's happened this week is that the potential for Gamergate changed.
Definitely. The longer it goes on, the more stories that are come out. I remember Eric Kane near the beginning. I remember him, and this is before Milo really became such a strong player in this. I remember those two getting into a bit of an argument, and I seem to recall Eric flat out saying that there isn't a story here. It's not really newsworthy. And now he's taking it very seriously. He's coming onto these streams and he's writing articles about it. How do you feel about what I and Oliver said, Adeel? And also, welcome to the stream, Remipunx, who is a little bit fashionably late. But
sorry about that.
Oh, don't worry about
sorry.
it. It's nothing. How do you feel, Adeel?
Could you repeat that one more time? Sorry. Thought.
More or less, do you think Gamergate is on a downward slope now? Or do you think that movements or actions such as the story being censored, or what one person in the stream asked me earlier before we went live was with the whole GamerX, that's GAY, the convention, the Twitter account that ran it, kind of being bullied to take a stance against Gamergate. And they really just went for a neutral stance, really, and they kind of got bullied into taking one side.
See, I was initially pretty pessimistic, but when Oliver put it like that, I was just like, all right, yeah, maybe we are on the up and up, because he's right. He did point out the fact that, like, Eric Kane 2 months ago, like, was saying there wasn't a story here, this is nothing. I think it's because of the longevity of this entire movement in the first place that he started looking into it so seriously. He wasn't expecting this to last. I'm guaranteeing you, he wasn't expecting this to last more than 2 weeks. So, like, yeah, I think it's an upslope now. Oliver convinced me.
Oliver's baby story. That's the swing vote right there.
Basically, yeah, we can't judge the status of an adult human based on the inability for a baby to do adult things. Like, you got to give it a chance to go somewhere, you know? That's all I'm saying. And here's also the other thing. The longer that Gamergate goes on, like I said, we're rolling into 2 months now. The longer this goes on, the more and more, like, our legitimacy as a movement continues to go up. If this was just regular internet, typical bullcrap, this would have been over, you know, within 36 hours. Like, that's basically how long anything lasts on the internet outside of a meme. It's like people show up, they'll get mad. If the Streisand effect shows up, okay, then it might last, I don't know, 3 days. But stuff doesn't last for 2 freaking months on the internet. It just doesn't happen. And so as this keeps going, and people keep saying consistently the same thing, you guys are sketchy, you're sketchy, you're sketchy, and more people are starting to go, maybe, just maybe, they're just starting now, just starting to entertain the notion that maybe these people really aren't misogynist, and maybe they aren't all racist white men, and, you know, all that old crap that they've been talking. They're starting to turn and look and see maybe it's not the narrative that they've been fed, because we wouldn't be hanging out this long if it was.
Definitely. Even I was a naysayer. I mean, I've put out when allegations about the mods from 4chan clamping down on the threads being made. This was before Moot made an official statement. I said it flat out to the Skype group I was part of. I'm like, look, if they close down 4chan, and they close down what I believe to be the headquarters of discussion, the movement's fucking dead. There is no movement. And I was wrong. And I was a supporter of Gamergate. So, do you have thoughts on this, Remy, before we take it to a different point?
Well, I kind of came in the middle, but I think that Ollie's spot on. It's being politically active. Most of us are very new to this. Also, Adele, the smirk in your picture just totally is the best thing ever. But most of the people that are taking part in this have never been part of a socially active movement. At least the people that I've been talking to. So we're learning how to function not just as a group, but even just learning how to properly make change and protest and to do things the right way. And we have fits and spurts and, you know, do things the wrong way, but we are winning journalists over. And even people that 3 weeks ago were telling me that I was sweet but deluded are now coming back and saying, well, can you tell me about this again and let me see if I got it right this time? So we're winning people over. Things are changing. It's just a matter of sticking to our guns and being polite, being adult about it, and trying to do the right thing.
See, like, I've had the opposite experience. Like, I've had the same people who have been against Gamergate since day one, trying to talk to them. Like, their narrative has slightly changed. Like, they're now saying Gamergate isn't a necessarily misogynistic movement, but it's a movement against criticism of gamers and gamer culture in general. Which I was like, okay, that's a little different, but at least it's something other than what the narrative's been.
You know, there's an interesting thing about that. First and foremost, the people who think that, oh, it's just against criticism of gamers, I'm going to say something inflammatory. I'm going to say, you know, those people must be some of the dumbest people I've ever seen. If you knew gamers, you knew that we nitpick at each other nonstop, 24/7. It's like that picture I saw going around where it's just a big pile of guys with lightsabers. Like, we go freaking crazy on each other. We're just, you know, people will jump. Gamers will jump down each other's throats over the tiniest stuff. In fact, we are hypercritical people. Like, one bug in a game for some people is enough to not purchase a title. that kind of stuff. And it's just really, really weird to see somebody go, oh, well, they don't want to be criticized. No, we exist in an entertainment medium that is probably more open to criticism than any other art form, so to speak. I'm doing air quotes for that right now, but that's just the way that it is. And it's like, if you think that we're not critical and gamers don't take criticism, or they don't deal with criticism, or they don't discuss, I invite you to go over to GameFAQs and just go through the forums there. You come back in 12 hours and you tell me whether or not gamers don't do criticism.
Yeah, you just go over there and ask what the best Final Fantasy is, and you come back and tell me.
It's going down.
Yeah, it's going down. I mean, hell, I TK people all the time in video games, so.
Did you guys see the tweets today about, I guess, another journalist felt attacked and harassed? And I sometimes wonder, because I keep using in gaming enthusiast journalism instead of professional journalism, but if they were gaming enthusiast, wouldn't they be better at taking smack talk? I mean, I know I've had some really ridiculous stuff thrown my way, and it's just kind of like, whatever, dude. I mean, I'm on PlayStation Network. That really wasn't that bad. Let's keep going. I have yet to see something on Twitter that's made me like, oh, I can't believe they said that. Yet our gaming enthusiast journalists don't seem to really understand how to smack talk like gamers.
Right,
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. One quick question before you respond, Adeel. Do we have a language thing in this stream tonight?
Oh, hell no. You can say
Okay.
whatever you want.
Okay,
Yes,
I'm just
Spells
making
are totally
sure.
okay with it. I think I dropped the C word the first time I was on a stream with Spells.
I'll drop it now, cunt. All right, go ahead. What is your question? Oh, was that the question?
Oh,
You can swear.
Adeel was speaking first, so I want him to go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Adeel.
Oh, okay. What I was going to say... Actually, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry about that.
That's partly my fault. What do you want to say then, Oliver?
Well, here's what I was going to say. I was going to say, just like Remy said, like, if these are gaming enthusiasts, where's their fucking thick skin? All right, let me tell you what goes down in my house. All right, I sit down, me and Miss Three Dog, we sit down to play Civ Revolution, and this woman talks the most crazy shit at me. I'm talking making a grown man cry almost. She's like, yeah, that's right, you're a bitch. You're a punk bitch. Fuck your civilization. I'm like, who are you? I didn't marry this. And I mean, she talks some mad shit. And it's like, if you can't handle being called a bitch in a video game, then I don't know what the fuck you're doing in a front-facing profession where thousands upon thousands, if not millions of people are going to show up and they're going to fucking hate you just because you spoke. It doesn't even matter what the hell you said. They're just going to show up and like, yeah, that's right, fuck this guy, fuck him, fuck his opinion. Like, and you're like, what did I do to you? Nothing, I hate your face. Like, if you can't fucking hack that, yeah, you're in the wrong place, man.
You shouldn't be online in general. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of the internet. I'll admit that if it was a choice between living with a bunch of really awesome people or, assholes who are going to talk shit, I would go with the former. But I've been the asshole. I've talked shit. My earliest gaming memory is when I was in 4th grade or 6th, and I was playing Star Siege Tribes, the original, and I went online into the global chat room, and I was talking to someone, and his name was Hell Knight, but I was a little kid, so I wasn't allowed to swear. So I called him Heck Knight, and he's like, dude, my name's Hell Knight. What the hell's wrong with you? And this is back when Hell Knight was like a really fucking cool name. And, I mean, I was like, man, I was a little traumatized as a little kid, but I grew up fine. I still play video games this day. But what did you want to say, Adeel?
Actually, I'm a part of the FGC. I can't even explain how much shit talking goes on at any of those events. It's like constant trash talk. Like, you will, like, while you're playing a match, there will be at least a crowd of 20 people behind you talking shit about the way you're playing. It's like, I can't understand, like, if they consider themselves gamers, like, how can they have such, like, they don't even have thick skin.
How can they have such thin skin, yeah.
Yeah, like, they should be used to this, yet they're complaining like little babies, like, about the smallest infraction against them.
As a female gamer, it's embarrassing. I mean, I'll flat out say because I pride myself on my smack talk. I am very good at it, and I can take it like a boss. And to see women, I was on a stream where one woman cried. I had left before the tears started, but I was just like, could you please not sell this bad woman stereotype? Like, I Six so game. I mean, we're kind of badasses, and we are we have thick skin and we've cursed like sailors and we'll kick your ass at whatever game you're playing. And to see these women who are supposedly my peers who are like, oh, 20 people tweeted me at once. I'm so harassed. I'm like,
Yeah.
really? Like,
Twitter PTSD.
please just go away. I keep telling people every time I see somebody post something about being harassed, I'm like, look, sweetheart, like you need to find a different medium to communicate with people because either lock your Twitter down so that nobody can see it or just walk away from it for a couple of weeks because this isn't bad. Call of Duty's bad. This is not a big deal.
It really is a trip, and it's, again, to the outside observer, they don't even understand why shit talk happens in video games. Let me drop some education on your head. Here's what's up. Video games are oftentimes, learning simulators or challenge simulators for things that could possibly, depending on the circumstances, be explored or done in real life. Like, people are like, oh, what do you mean? What are you comparing video games to real stuff? No, I'm just saying, sit down and look at Super Mario Brothers, okay? I actually did pieces on this at one point in time where I said, well, what does Super Mario Brothers teach you? And I looked at it and I said, terrain negotiation. And everyone just kind of stopped. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you walk with 2 feet, so does Mario. He's got to jump over crazy stuff. Now, those are exaggerations, but the concepts are still the same. It's a concept you can understand as a human being. Yes, Mario can jump higher than a regular person, but nevertheless, you still have to learn how to navigate terrain with your feet. So that's the kind of stuff that we pick up in gaming. And many games are obviously engaged in acts of warfare or conflict, 2 people, fighting, for example, just, regular fighting games, things like that, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, so on and so forth. And one of the classic just things in war and in conflict is morale. If you can shake your opponent's confidence for even a split second, if you can cause them to doubt their own ability and you can doubt their own skill, you can turn the tide on stuff. Like, this is why the side-by-side arcade experience of playing a fighting game, that's why that always kind of prevailed. And it was about talking trash, and it was about making the other person fall off their game for just a second so you can step in there and catch a vulnerability or, catch them with a super combo or just an insane combo. It's all about throwing someone off their game. And gamers, we embrace that. Like, we're just like, oh yeah, if I talk trash to this dude, he's going to fall off a cliff. Okay, fall, you little punk. You can't do shit. Blah, blah, blah. You're popping all that good shit, and you might actually shake a guy with it. And
Yeah,
it just comes with the territory.
It's not even just gaming, and I'm not trying to cut you off here, but with
No.
football players, you get a linebacker mic'd up, man. You're gonna blush, no matter if you're a fucking sailor who swears all the time. He'll talk mad shit, and he's probably getting coached to talk mad shit. His coach is probably like, dude, I want you to talk the biggest fucking shit you can about the other guy on the other side of this line, because at the end of the day, you need to shake up their morale. You need to, sack the quarterback or whatever the hell.
See, I've never been the type to shit talk. I've always been the type to let my game do the talking. The thing is, whenever I try to get obsessively good at a game, I do nothing but like that. I let my game do the talking for me, but regardless, and it's the best thing in the world when shit talking fails for me personally.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't want to talk about shit talking in general, but I did want to bring up another point, and that was I feel that the fighting, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I feel like the fighting game community should be a little bit more vocal about this, because as far as I'm concerned, the media has always fucking been there like a fucking hawk to pick up on any little misstep that they take with their streams. Anyone saying, bitch at a fighting game tournament spun out of control into this clickbait article. They've always been on the receiving end, and now's their chance to, be on the offensive.
No, I completely agree. I've actually talked to some major fighting game folks. They think it's a bullshit movement. Like the major players within the fighting game community. I've talked to a lot of them. They think it's a bullshit movement. It's about harassment. I think they're taking that stance in the first place because of the origins of the movement itself. They haven't really been informed on it. Like, I agree. That's one of the biggest reasons why I supported Gamergate initially, was to make sure people like this get called out on their bullshit. Because, like, as somebody who's been a part of the fighting game community for almost 5 years at this point, like playing competitively, these guys are some of the nicest folks outside of playing games. Like, they will do anything to help you out. They're the most inclusive. They don't care who you are. But if you suck, they'll call you out on it. Yeah, but like, they don't care who you are. They just want to play you. And that's the beautiful thing about the fighting game community as a whole. But I'm really upset that they haven't taken a stance on it at all. Like, the major players anyway.
I think the main event, I'm not sure what his actual name is, but he did a YouTube show and it was pretty good. So hopefully more people within the community step up, though. But you guys want to move on to another topic, or is there anything else anybody would like to add?
Well, I was
Yeah.
gonna say with the sorry, Ali, you go first.
No, go ahead, Remy.
Yeah.
Okay. With the fighting game community, at least up here, I've talked to the guys. I mean, I was at a tournament the week after stuff really blew up. I was helping run one, and a lot of the guys are at that point they were scared. They were concerned because we have such a bad reputation, and we've been coming off of a couple of arrests in our scene here, and some, like, not to say we mirror the NFL, but we've had some really stupid crap go down at tournaments, and it's just kind of like, guys. So they were scared for their reputations and trying to fix who they are. They didn't want to piss the journos off more. And I think that we've come this far, they're the ones who are really starting to come back and say, well, tell me about it a little bit more. And I think that's kind of what it is. That, and all of the people that I would want to comment on it aren't going to give any fucks because they don't even live in this country. Like, they're so disconnected from the media that covers them that I can't see them caring, unfortunately. I would love them to because that would be hot. But yeah, I think the longer that this goes on, the more names and things are going to start looking our way and be a little bit less afraid of being connected to something that, is misogynistic and evil and hates women.
No, Remy is absolutely 100% right. Like when you said, well, how come the fighting game isn't coming out? If you don't recall, they just came off of a whole series of hit pieces against the fighting game community, where it was the same sites in question came in and was just like, oh, the fighting game community is sexist and it's all this. And there was, if you remember when Street Fighter Cross Tekken came out, and Remy probably knows better than I do. I can't remember what stream it was. I think it was a Capcom hosted stream, and there was a lady on with the guys, and they were just kind of saying really, they were saying shit talking. They were just doing
They said
shit
bitch
talk.
is what it was.
Well, they said that. I think somebody was talking about like asking about a brawl size or stuff, doing the same kind of stuff, just anything you can to shake the person, and I think she did get really, really upset by that, and she had to leave stream, if I recall correctly, right?
Yeah, and that was another one of those cases where it's hard, and I'll tell you guys, and I'll tell anybody, when I go into a tournament, and even with our game space up here, the first time I went, everybody was so afraid to talk around me. Like, the entire room fell silent because people were afraid to say the wrong thing. The first time I brought my daughter with me, same situation. Everybody fell silent. So I don't know with her if she was so used to being handled with kid gloves, and that's why, because it felt weird. I mean, I don't know if you watched, but like, it evolved really strangely. Like, it seemed like normal smack talk to me, and then it just went completely sideways, and I was like, well, crap. Because I'll be like, oh, honey, is your dick little? Because that makes guys upset, and they play
Damn.
worse. So it's you say stuff that is totally off base and not appropriate for mixed company in mixed company because it flusters people, especially when it's a chick next to you doing it. Um, so that was bad. And then we did have a couple of cases in violence. There was one in Jersey, like at a tournament where dude was jumping over tables. So I there's a lot of caution there. But yeah, that was a weird stream. Like, I don't recommend people. I think they got taken down, actually. Is it still up? I'm gonna go
I
hunt.
don't
I'll be
know. I
right
seem
back.
to recall someone getting in a fight with somebody else who's wearing a horse mask. I may be going crazy. But yeah, did anyone else want to add anything before we jump to the next point? What's up, Adeel?
I wanted to add something in particular. The girl who actually got harassed. The stream was called Cross Assault, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, like the girl who actually got harassed has on multiple occasions stepped up and defended the fighting game community because, like, she even herself said this was an isolated incident. This usually doesn't happen within my community, and she has on multiple occasions gone up and like talked to people who were detractors from the fighting game community and straight up said, "No, you guys are talking mad bullshit. Like, what are you guys talking about? This was a one-time thing. I just got and yeah, like the girl's cool as hell. Like, if anybody tries to talk to her, she just
Shut them down.
huh?
She shuts them down. If you try and talk smack to her, or
Yeah, like it wasn't necessarily smack talk. It was just like constant like sexual advances and statements like that. And she's like, look, that was the only time I've ever faced her something like that. But even then, he even apologized for it. He said sorry, and she accepted the apology. And like all these journalistic websites were making it a point to say like fighting games, like the fighting game community isn't a safe space for women or anybody who's transgender or anybody who isn't straight, pretty much. And they were racist and all this stuff after this incident happened. And as somebody who's kept up with the fighting game scene since like for 5 years now, like racism is only like I wouldn't consider anybody in the fighting game community obtusely racist ever. Like we say a lot of inflammatory things to each other, but I would not paint anybody in that community as a racist.
yeah, I mean, definitely wouldn't. All right, is there anything else, or you want to move on to a subject that I know Remy wanted to talk about?
I wanted to talk about things. I don't even remember what I wanted to talk about.
Well, I originally set up this stream because you and Oliver, I believe, were having a discussion, and you brought up Spellsfired as any good citizen would, and mentioned how maybe we could talk and do a show. And I jumped in and we arranged it. And you messaged me and saying you wish to talk about review scores. So,
Oh, right.
Date here, you want
So I've been doing some research. I didn't start out as a member of the Scooby Gang with this. I was definitely somebody who just took information from other people, but the last week, a lot of things have made me go, And I guess everybody at this point has heard the Ralph report with Liana K's, rounding up scores so that people get bonuses and things
Yeah.
like that. So that doubled with I have become obsessed with this game called Actual Sunlight, which is to me, stronger version of Depression Quest. At least it's truer to my experiences and is a little bit more artistically advanced. And it didn't get touched. It didn't get reviewed. So I took it upon myself to email and DM journalists at everywhere. I was just all the places. Like, hey, why didn't you touch this game? Why didn't it get noticed? And lo and behold, most of them came back saying, I've never heard of it. So as consumers and people who want good quality, I would much rather have 100 actual sunlights versus one depression quest. I mean, there's actual gameplay. It's a horribly depressing game. I don't think it's for everyone. It's definitely more in the art indie side of gaming, but it it was really quality and nobody had heard of it. There was tons of positive consumer reviews on Steam for it, though. And I wonder, as consumers, what we can do to get these games that we're excited about noticed by these people who can then springboard instead of hearing about literally who and people who are using Twine to make games, because I made a game in 30 minutes on Twine, and nobody wants to play it, but I did. I'm a game dev now, woohoo! But how, as consumers, can we sort of springboard these people that are doing great things and making games that are going to be fun to play, or educational, or anything else? What can we do to get these journalists, or the new journalists that come in to replace the bogus crap journalists we've had, to write about and review the games that we really want to hear about?
Huh.
Who wants to start, or should I start?
Go ahead and start.
All right, well, naturally I'm going to show my own site. With Spellsfired.com, it's literally anyone can write a review for anything related to video games or do streams, yada yada. And you need to... Steam is a good first step, but we need essentially more sites like Steam where users have a direct voice as opposed to having to rely on trying to make contact with the official representatives of a site. There's definitely going to be hidden gems, and I mean, there are games that all of us flat out have never heard of. That's just a reality of life. And journalists, even if that's their job, you know, there's going to be no exception for them too. There's going to be games they simply haven't heard of, especially if these journalists are bloggers, whatever hell you want to call them, even if they are as bad as we make them out to be, which in some cases they definitely are. Sometimes you just need more sites. It might be a matter of you need to go to platforms where users have power. Places like YouTube, places like Spellsfire.com eventually, the Steam official review or guide writing on their store. Because at the end of the day, you're still trying to A, make contact with a journalist who's probably already swamped with emails, and B, you're hoping that they give you the time of day and look into it. And that's just something that's probably not going to happen. I mean, if they are already in a market where they can get copies before a game is released, why would they try to go after a small game like the Sunlight game you mentioned that's already out that no one really cares about? You know what I mean?
Sure.
At least that's my point of view. Let's hear someone else speak about it.
Well, go ahead, Adeel.
No, I mean, go ahead, Oliver. I'm still gathering my thoughts.
You know, here's the thing. Let's use a slightly bigger title to illustrate Remy's point. I've talked about it a few times. Way back in 2009, so you know, Demon Souls came out. Now, like, let me start off. Dark Souls is all the rage now, and people talk about it, and you see it get shilled a lot on bigger sites and so on and so forth. But originally, Demon Souls didn't start out as just the Souls series, I should say. Didn't start out being talked about all that much. Here's what ended up happening. Here's the narrative. That game came out in, you know, Asian territories, came out in Japan, so forth, and it was actually localized already in English, in English completely. Like, it had English text, it had English voiceovers, it had the whole 9 yards. And what happened with that game is that people just started hearing about it and they started importing it because the PS3, with the exception of like 2 games, has no region locking on it. And so people were getting in there and they were talking about it and all that. And this is, you know, this was all kind of going on when I was still kind of a little bit of a lurker just as far as communities go. And so I kept seeing people talking about this game, but no one on the journalist end wanted to talk about it. And they were just like, yeah, you got to get that game. That game is nuts. It's freaking crazy. It's hard as hell. And no one was talking about it. And then Atlas comes along, and Atlas USA says, we are going to publish that game. Like, They just did. But here's the point, is that the community was talking about this game, and they're the ones that hyped it up. In fact, it was because so many people were importing this game that they said, enough people are importing this game that we might as well go ahead and bring it over, because now we're just missing out on money at this point. And so no one really wanted to have the discussion about this game, because at the end of the day, no journalist was interested in it. It wasn't about whether or not the community was interested in this title. It was the journalists were interested in it. But what ended up happening is, because Demon's Souls did so damn well, it went right into the PlayStation 3 Greatest Hits titles, and I do believe that requires a title to ship over 1 million units before it becomes Greatest Hits. It left journalists with no other choice, but they had to talk about this thing. Okay, here's the thing. Phenomenon actually occurred. Well, let's take a look at it and see what's up. And because of all that prestige that came along, then Namco, showed up and said, hey, we think we want to publish this title for you. And, they came along and helped From Software out, which that company's been around for years. They've been pumping out Armored Core games left and freaking right, but nobody was talking about it. But this was the game that caught people's attention. And there's a problem. There's a huge, huge problem in journalism with them not covering the game's community is actually talking about. Like, more often than not, just as you guys are describing, I find out about smaller titles or things that people are going, holy crap, this is crazy, this is cool, I've never seen anything like it. I find out from community more than I do game journalists, because it's a twofold problem. One, journalists are usually not interested in a title, and two, there's a crap ton of games out there, and it's impossible for them to cover every single one. So they kind of got to be, they got to pick and choose the time. The unfortunate side effect of that is that they pick the one that gets the most publicity, or the one that gets the most capital thrown behind it.
Yeah, like from what I know about Actual Sunlight, it was just one guy just making a game. I don't think he had any marketing behind it at all. So that's probably why it got underlooked. I mean, marketing is so essential to the sale of a game, to the sales numbers of a game. Like, people don't realize it's because of marketing that word about these, like, amazing fucking games gets out.
But what's marketing? Because my understanding of what marketing in the gaming community has been thus far is going to press events and getting drunk with people. Like, if you're suffering from depression, even if you have, gotten original art, have amazing sprites for the game, done everything that you're supposed to do, you're not going to go to a bar and get drunk with a bunch of journalists. And that's kind of what it sounds like it takes for some of these smaller games to get seen, is buying a few rounds. And I don't know if people are capable of that. I mean, I know for me, that sounds like a horrible situation.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's going around getting drunk with people, but what's more important is you're getting your name out there, and you're whispering in the ears of people who have loud voices. These are the journalists, these are the websites. I mean, that's why places like GDC have such a ridiculous paywall. I was talking on another stream with various game developers, and we kind of came to the conclusion that GDC is more or less a glorified job fair behind a ridiculous paywall, and that the main attraction of GDC for a lot of developers is going to these parties afterwards, making the connections and getting publicity through making connections. And you also need to keep in mind that these sites are also businesses. And if you're running a site and people, advertisers are paying you to advertise on your site, and the idea is that you want to get as many clicks as possible, are you going to cover random small game and hope that people are interested, or are you going to go after the games that are the most hyped or the most looked forward to, the game of the year or AAA or whatever the hell name you want to call them? You're going to go after that stuff because that's a safe bet. That's going to get you clicks. That's going to pay you and feed your family at the end of the day. And it's a very self-serving system, because then those games make more money through your publicity that the site's giving them. so they sink more money into marketing. They invite you to more parties. They make more connections, and they just get ahead.
Pretty much, like you hit the nail on the head there. A lot of it, like even my own professors who have worked in the industry for a long period of time before becoming professors themselves, like they told me, like networking with different people is the best way to get your name out there, even if you're not necessarily. Even if you're not necessarily working, trying to get a job, and you're an indie developer, just like talking to some of these bigger developers can give you a leg up on so many people. A lot of the game making process, believe it or not, is just networking. Like I would say around 60% is networking, 40% is actually developing the game itself.
Does that answer your question, Remy? Or I mean,
A
I know
little
we're not
bit.
going to cover.
Coming at it from a journalist standpoint, and I don't fully understand how gaming journalists get paid. I don't know if it's by a word count or by clicks that get on their page because they're not dealing with actual press, paper press.
It probably varies.
Yeah,
Um,
I can confirm that it does vary. Some people are just getting paid, per word on a word basis. Some are just pure clicks. It's just shot in the dark. It's
so
if
it
you go
kind
and
of
ask
depends on who the person is more than.
it just depends on the outlet mostly.
Okay. Because the world that I come from in my background in journalism is you're paid by the word. No matter who you are, you're going to be paid. You're told ahead of time, this is your base and this is your word count. Give us words. Write content, write quality content. And again, I am way old school. I'm talking actual print newspapers. So looking at these reviews, and I fell down a Kotaku hole a couple days ago on a stream, and it was a painful place to be. But I looked and I read through so many different reviews, and just from a writer, not from a game enthusiast standpoint, but just from a writer standpoint, 10 minutes tops I could write a Kotaku review. The other sites whose names I don't even feel like dirtying my mouth with, it's reading the content on there. It's not even quality writing. It's not even quality review work. So, yes, I understand that there's only so much time in the day and only so many games they can play to properly review them. But are they really using their time towards being good at their craft and being good at their medium, or are they spending it socializing and networking and making a name so that they get those few more cents for every junk word that they write?
Right. That's what should scare you. Really, that is what it comes down to. And just, I can only speak for myself, but I refuse to buckle to bullshit. Like, I'm not gonna go through the whole process of just writing crap for the sake of that because, well, I think it's insulting. Like, if it pisses me off, I'm sure it pisses off at least one other person on Earth. There are 7 billion people out there, and if I'm mad, there's a chance at least one guy's like, you know what, that makes me mad too. Well, I care more about that guy than other people saying, well, you got to do things this way. There's also the whole search engine optimization problem where people will put in words to make that show up more in Google results and things like that. I don't do that stuff. I don't care. Like, I just don't give a crap. Either my words are going to prosper based on their own merit, or they're going to drown on their own, and I don't make compromises in that regard. This has pissed people off in regards to me in the past, but I'd rather have that integrity of actually writing the content in order to address directly the audience. Like, I'm sorry, that's just the way that I am, and I'm not going to go back on that for anybody. I'm not going to change that. I don't give a damn.
Yeah, you're right. Like, this is more than anything a matter of integrity. Most of these journalists don't have that. They don't really, like, I feel as if like any Kotaku journalist, take them out of the position, put in a very experienced gamer, somebody who's been playing games most of his life to this point, and put them in the position of a journalist, I guarantee you they would come out with reviews that are a dozen times better than what you see on Kotaku today. Because like as you stated earlier, we nitpick shit. We look at everything regarding the game and explain why it is good, explain why it is bad. We obsess over whatever content we are consuming.
Yeah, it's part of being a gamer. So
Right.
how to tie back to actual review scores, Remy, or is this?
Well, it sort of does, because it sounded to me, and I hadn't really thought about it until listening to the Redheaded Drama Llama, that I didn't understand the review process for games. I looked at the sheets that they use to review them, and there are different categories, and it's different by reviewer and by website. But it's very, I don't want to say it's very arbitrary. Like it's definite questions and things, but there is room for just sort of completely saying fuck it and giving something a 10 out of 10 that doesn't necessarily deserve it. Um, and that's my thing is the quality of review. The folks that are still going to Kotaku and still going to these places because there are. I mean, not everybody is part of the movement, and not everybody is avoiding these sites. Those folks that are still going there, I wonder if their movie reviews were so, I don't want to say bullshit, but it's basically what it is, and so arbitrary. Would they still go to those sites? I know, like with Rotten Tomato, if I read something and it's just crap, I'm like, well, I don't trust that person's judgment anymore. They write, like an idiot. And why aren't more people up in arms about these very bizarre scores that don't necessarily make sense, or that are done in ways that are just there because somebody wants somebody else to get a bonus? Like, I still can't believe somebody said that in public. Um, but how are more people not upset about this? There's a lot of us in Gamergate, but there's a lot of us that aren't. And it baffles me that more people aren't going, what? Why is this going on? We have 2 scanners now. That's exciting.
Yeah, we duplicated him. I think review scores are argued about a lot, actually. I mean, even before the Gamergate ordeal, there's the classic 8.8 for the Legend of Zelda game on Wii, and
10 out of 10 for
Scores.
God Roll.
yeah, scores in general. I mean, the running joke of IGN is they keep giving out 10s or 9.5s or whatever, and they water down the scores. I'm not sure if more widespread. I mean, that's just us having a different opinion.
I mean, is it really that bad? I guess that's the thing is you know how, I don't know how you guys behave at bars with your friends, but I've never been afraid to tell somebody, nah, sweetie, you're really a 3. You're a really nice 3, but you're a 3. And I feel like we've gotten, maybe because the community is so closely knit, or people are worried that they're not going to get free games to play in a couple of weeks, but I feel like people are afraid to give honest scores for things that are just kind of, oh gosh, my neighbor's dog is losing its crap. But I feel like we don't see low scores when low scores really honestly just make sense.
Yeah, I mean, Rockstar, pretty sure they sicked some PR people on for giving a lower score than what they desired. That happened. Does anyone
When
else
you
want to
say
find out?
PR people, are they in like scary suits and like dark sunglasses?
They might as well be. They might be
Yeah.
black.
No, that's pretty accurate. PR people, actual dedicated PR people, are fucking terrifying. Like these are, I'm just saying, they're like the Men in Black of just video games. I'm like, who's this guy over here? They're like, oh, that's a PR guy, and he doesn't say shit. Like if he goes up, like if he snaps his fingers, whatever's being talked about stops right then, right there. Like they're like the dog trainer that's got a dude on a leash and has like all the muzzle control and everything. Like they will just cut you off and like, nope, we're not going there, and that's it. And you're like, what do? They're really scary people.
Yeah, PR have a lot of power. And sometimes, the line between PR and marketing just doesn't exist.
I'm not sure if you saw that tweet by Tech Raptor. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh,
But
no. Go ahead.
okay. I saw this tweet by Tech Raptor how they got like an entire press kit and it already had a pre-written article in it. Like, this is what you should say about us. Yeah, give us good score and just say this about us. It's like that's complete bullshit.
That's marketing, man. That's getting publicity. That's getting your product, and that's competing with your competitors. I mean, the battle is spread to YouTube now, and we're going to talk about that later for sure. But did anyone else want to chip in about review scores?
Yeah, I will talk about
What's up,
review
Oliver?
scores. I don't do review scores because they're horseshit. Like it's a game that you can't win. You cannot win. The only winning move is to not play the review score game. And so for me, and that's all I can do. All I can do is speak for myself and say why I don't do review scores. Is because just the 1 to 10 scale, which shouldn't be a very subjective thing, or 1 to 10 or 5 stars, or just 1 out of 5, whatever it is. I don't understand how it got so complicated. And, when we were all in school, you got a letter grade, A, B, C, D, F, right? And depending on how far back you were just in schooling, you might have gotten an E for effort. But it used to be, is like a C was you are average, you are doing okay, you are meeting the expectation for everyone, and you could get better, you could show improvement, you could rise above your peers. If you got an A, you were fucking great. Like, you were a star. You were a shining example of a thing. But then at some point when we started doing all this star shit, we started doing all this, 1 out of 10 and all the increments in between that. It's just that somehow everyone got confused on what that shit meant. If a game came out and it was a 6.5, if it was a 7, way back in the day, it used to be, yeah, you're still probably safe to pick up this game. Like, it's going to be okay. It's got some rough edges, but it's all right. You'll find something. The chances are you might enjoy it. An 8 was, well, this is better than your average title. It's a cut above. And then obviously you had your 9s and your 10s where, holy shit, this is fucking incredible. This is a game that you must purchase if you own, whatever video game hardware. It's like, why, if you don't have this in your library, we're all gonna kind of scratch our heads. Like, what are you doing? The only reason you shouldn't have that game in your library is if you just didn't like that genre. And now, when you've got money tied into it, because that's what it comes down to, there's money tied into these scores. It makes no fucking sense when developers are getting bonuses and getting payouts and shit based on a Metacritic review score, when Metacritic does nothing to represent how commercially successful a title was. I don't get that. It makes my brain explode from the inside out. Like, I don't get it. Are you seriously trying to tell me that Fallout New Vegas, for example, missed its Metacritic bonus and damn near tanked that company, even though it moved millions of units? No one's counting how many fucking sales occurred here? Are you serious? Like, that blows my mind. Fuck the score. The score doesn't fucking matter. Everyone's gonna throw their little fucking, score in the pile. Well, I think it was a 6.5. Well, I think it was a 4.5. Well, I think it was a 12. Like, we're not even using 1 to 12. I don't care. It was a 12. It was beyond perfection. They're going to talk all that
Yeah.
good shit. And it has nothing to do with that. That's why I avoid scores. I just say, this is what I played, and if I really enjoyed it, I should be able to convey that in words like a grown adult human being, and just say, this is one of the best games I've ever played in my life. It's not a perfect game, but it's a game that I really, really, really enjoyed. And I hope that this turns into a franchise and they stick with it for a while. Or I hope we can revisit this subject matter or this material again. This is so fun. There's a couple of problems here that need to be addressed, or there was just a flaw in game design or whatnot. And I think these are things that can be fixed, or maybe it's just a fatal flaw in the design itself, and they, will have to go all the way back to the drawing board. But I do not understand the obsession with scores when the very nature of the score itself anymore is completely subjective. One man's 7.5 is another man's 2. Just the fact that we have to have
Yeah.
that discussion means that the whole thing is fucked.
Yeah, like look at my not my number 9. What was that recent game made by Platinum on the Wii U? Not Bayonetta 2, but it was like,
The Wonderful 101.
yeah, there we go. Wonderful 101 got a 6 out of 10, and that essentially killed the momentum for that game. Even though it's not a bad game at all, like I've played the game, it's not the best, but it's all right. I would consider it above average. However, however, sorry, there's some interference in the background that's kind of throwing me off.
It's
But
Skinner. I think he needs to mute his mic. But go on, Adeel.
yeah, Wonderful 101 wasn't the best game of all time, 10 out of 10, but like giving a game below a 7 is like a death sentence for so many games. It's not even funny. Like anything below a 7 to most consumers' eyes makes it automatically crap, not worth buying.
Yeah, I hate review scores, and when we have created a community or a culture where we can take two pieces of arguably art or products and have two ordinary people meet together, and the resulting conversation of how game X is boiled down to a fucking number. That's just fucking bullshit. I want to hear what is good about this game. I want to hear why this game is bad or broken or what the bugs are. I want to know why you liked it or why you hated it. I don't want to be fed a fucking number. I don't want to be like, oh, that game's a 6 or a 7. It's like, this isn't a fucking bar where we're trying to pick up girls or guys or wherever the hell. We're talking about $60 purchases and, a passion, shit we like to do for fun. Why we're all here, why Gamergate is a movement. And I don't want to see it boil down to fucking numbers.
Let's put it this way, to really illustrate the whole problem. Okay, look at Journey. Journey has an hour's worth of gameplay, right? Like, you can sit down from the start of the game, you can play through that whole narrative in an hour, and it's going to be the same thing every time you sit down and play. But then we've got something like an RPG. Let's go with a typical classic. Let's go with Final Fantasy VII, which is at least 80 hours. Are you trying to say that using the 1 out of 10 scale or 5 stars or whatever, you can actually compare a game that's got 1 hour of gameplay versus an 80-long RPG epic? Like, when I say epic, I mean the word epic in the classical term. Like, it's one of our great works of our time as far as this medium goes, and will probably be forever. Can you seriously sit there and compare those two games on the exact same kind of scale? I don't think you can.
Yeah, and even with different genres, just the idea of this score, this number that can blanket games of any genre so that they can be compared is just malarkey, really. Games are different. An RPG is not a first-person shooter, and to a lot of people, a 7 of 10 RPG is way better than a fucking 12 of 10 shooter.
Agreed. Like, personally, my games of choice are RPGs, and I would, at the end of the day, personally, I would take a crap, as in quotation marks, crap, RPG that was rated 6 out of 10 over the next Call of Duty installment any day. Because, like, there's just so much more content in an RPG in comparison to, like, FPS game. Not that I'm saying FPS games are bad. It's just what I would rather get the game that's more bang for my buck.
I think I finally found a way to describe the score problem. Like, to make a comparison that everyone would get and say, yeah, we should kind of do away with scores. Using these scoring systems to compare all these different games, and I use Journey versus Final Fantasy VII as my example, but let's move it outside of regular video games and move it on to something else, and we can see that it ends up turning into this comparing apples to oranges problem. It would be like sitting down and judging the merits of rugby against the merits of baseball. They're both sports, they're both games, but you can't sit there and say, man, well, what are you going to rate rugby? Is it on a 1 to 10 scale in comparison to this? Well, you can't. They're too fundamentally different from each other to just go, well, you can't go 1 to 10 on this. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. It's like the craziest thing I've ever heard. Like, the more just thinking about it out loud, it doesn't make any sense. Why the hell would I compare, Olympic-style swimming against football? Like, well, is it a sport? Well, yes. Well, you can't use the same damn scale for this stuff because they're so drastically different that it's an inadequate way to try to form a comparison.
Definitely.
I think another problem with review scores in general is I guarantee you, like, when somebody looks for a review, the first thing they do is scroll down to see score. A score, like, we can easily identify what a 1 out of 10 is. Like, oh, this is an 8? Yeah, it's worth buying. And we click out of the review instantly. I think people just want to quickly gaze at what makes a game good, get out. And I think that's a huge problem about it. It's more for catering to not enthusiasts necessarily, but the casual game player, or like they would consider themselves gamers, but they aren't as entrenched in its culture as somebody like me or Remy or Oliver are, or you as well.
Well, yeah, and I guess part of it does fall on the consumer. I mean, if you can't spend 10 minutes before you make a $60 purchase for a game that'll last you hours, you're gypping yourself at that point. But did anyone else want to add anything? Because I do want to talk about Mordor. I don't know what kind of time you guys have.
I'm back. You guys have me for about 15 more minutes.
Okay. Well, did you want to add anything before you get going then, Remy?
I totally don't know what we were just talking about, so I don't want to make myself sound like a derp. But I do want to talk about the Mordor thing and us kind of getting called out on not calling things out, even though we were calling things out. Did that make sense?
Somewhat. But Oliver or Adeel, did you want to add anything to the review score, or do you want to move on?
No, we can move on if you want to.
Okay. The big controversy that I wanted to talk about was the Shadow of Mordor YouTube sponsorship bullshit, in my opinion, that's been revealed. It was originally revealed by Total Biscuit, who made the tweet suggesting, or, well, flat out saying that view copies of the game were being given out early to YouTubers, but only if they adhere to a very strict narrative. Jimquisition went out and revealed a video claiming that he got his hands on a copy of the contract that was given to YouTubers. I have no idea if this is stuff that could be negotiated. Boogie made a video about it and he said that these things can be negotiated, but Jimquisition put it out there, and there's some very strict limits. The disturbing part was very much that you couldn't say bad things about it, and you had to really harp on very specific parts of the game. You had to talk about the Nemesis system in the game, and I'm talking about Shadows of Mordor, by the way, and that you had to do like a live stream of the game and then do 2 separate YouTube videos. It was very detailed, and that's kind of why it scared me. And I basically wanted to ask you guys how you felt about it, and if you think this is something that Gamergate should be outraged by. Eric Kane wrote a good article about it, suggesting that people within the Gamergate community should be angry about it, and I agree with him. But I want to hear what you guys think.
We touched on this in the Girls of Gamergate stream. The standards that YouTubers, which most awkward title for a person ever, are held to is a very different standard for journalists. You don't go to college to learn how, and not saying a gaming journalist, I'm using lots of air quotes, went to college to learn how to do their trade, but in theory, you learn a code of ethics and how to do your job. YouTubers don't have that same sort of background and training, so it's sort of hard to have an ethical hardline with YouTubers. The thing that the ladies that I'm on the stream with who are more versed in the YouTube world than I am were explaining that a lot of people do disclosures at the beginning of their videos explaining, how they acquired the game and and things like that, that they do have fairly decent disclosure policies and self-policing in that way. But it's hard. I think we need to lean on the company. I mean, I think that's the thing. I think we should be more upset with that than the YouTubers that sort of took advantage of, or were taken advantage of, I think is more the thing. I don't think that these people know contractual law. I don't think that they know, have an ethical code or anything like that. So the fact that, AAA companies think that it's okay to sort of strong arm people. I mean, that's, I think, what we should be upset about. Eric's piece kind of confused me because I couldn't tell who he thought we should be upset with. I can't be mad at the YouTubers because I don't think they just don't have the same ethical code that journalists do. But I do kind of look cross-eyed at the company and I'm like, well, why did you think that was acceptable?
Okay, did someone else want to chime in? Because I have a response to this that I was cooking up. All right, so if
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Oliver.
It's simple. No, Gamergate people shouldn't be mad about it. How about this? How about because YouTubers are not fucking journalists in most cases, unless they're identifying as journalists. They're not journalists. They're fucking media personalities. Like how it's like people complaining if like Michael Jordan used to endorse Nike, or Nike or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But at the end of the day, they're not journalists. They're not held to that standard because that's not what they're doing. They're people who are obviously being paid or compensated to endorse a product. The good ones, or at least, are using that disclosure of, yeah, by the way, I'm being paid to endorse this thing, and they're being held to certain behavior. So, by the way, we're paying you or compensating you to do this thing. Don't shit talk the thing that we're paying you to do. It's just that simple. I mean, you can go ask any celebrity who does any kind of endorsement for any product, and they'll just say, yeah, I'm not allowed to say bad things about this thing, because that's what I'm being paid to do. That's what I'm being compensated to do. So I don't understand why people are viewing this as anything else other than that. That's what blows my mind. I mean, it doesn't matter if it has to do with video games or not. It's the same concept. Ultimately, they're not held to that standard because they're not performing a job, so to speak. It's not a career like a journalist is, where if you sit down and you go, I'm going to become a journalist, okay, well, there's a certain expectation of how you go about doing things, and you're expected to adhere to that standard. But there's not any kind of standard for someone who's being asked to endorse a product or to hype a product. That's all of it that it is. Like, I'm just sitting here shrugging my shoulders going, what do? Because I don't know what the uproar is about.
Well, I'll be glad to say my piece because I disagree, but I want to hear from Adeel.
I actually completely agree with Oliver there. People who consider themselves journalists do usually disclose that, but at the end of the day, they're media personalities. I feel like pretty much they're not journalists. They're not claiming to be journalists, and they are giving free promotion away for the game. So they're not contractual. They're not obligated to act on the same ethics that journalists do. I feel like that's actually not an issue of Gamergate. Just my opinion on that.
So what I'm getting is the basis of this is because YouTubers are not journalists, they're not held by the same ethics, and it becomes okay?
Pretty much.
Here's what I'm saying. What I'm saying with that is that this is not anything irregular. It's not unexpected. It occurs in every industry. I mean, it's just that. I mean, and obviously, don't get me wrong, there are laws specifically in place for this stuff. Like, don't worry about that. They're there. But I'm saying they're trying to equate YouTube media personalities against people who are journalists and critics and reviewers, and I hate to say it, but it actually is comparing apples to oranges. They're not the same thing, and they're not in the same category. Even though we're talking about the same subject matter, does not necessarily make them held to the same standard.
I love that you keep using the term media personalities. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to go? You go.
No, go ahead.
I like that you keep using the term media personalities because with some of the people that have become um, associated with Gamergate, there is a big difference where you being a enthusiast blogger, being a YouTuber versus being a journalist or even a TV personality. These are all different things. You don't look at the people who sit at the desk at Entertainment Tonight. Wow, I totally just aged myself. But you don't really look at them as being hard-hitting reporters. They're media personalities, and so they're different. They're different facets, all part of the same machine of getting games seen and getting games out there. But they are personalities. They're not journalists. It's a completely different beast. Now, when those lines get muddy, and oftentimes in our gaming
Those
industry,
lines are
those
already
lines.
made. I'm telling you guys now. But go on, Remy.
Well, but I can't think. I'm trying to think of YouTubers that I enjoy that also act as. I mean, have you seen the guys that are gaming journalists? I don't want to look at one of them playing a game. Like, no,
Well,
no interest at
Polygon,
all.
Kotaku, PC Gamer, these are companies that have YouTube accounts. If they're allowed to do it, if it's not ethically wrong for them to make a video like the Shadow of Mordor promotion, as long as they follow the law, they could do.
They're not, they're a corporate entity. That's a completely different thing. Then you're getting into corporate law. That's a totally different bailiwick. That's why when developers who are actually businesses are on streams, behave and talk, like you'll notice the developers that actually understand corporate law when they're on streams versus those that don't because they speak very, very differently. Those aren't YouTubers, those are businesses. It's a completely
Yeah, but
different
if they're
thing.
if they're still a corp, but they're not journalists. If Polygon is releasing a video about Shadow of Mordor and it's not on their site, it's on YouTube only, they're adhering to YouTube's ethics, and
Not
they're no
necessarily.
longer
No,
a
no, they're
journalist
not.
Whoa,
if they're
It's
not
whoa.
writing
no,
anything.
no, no,
Whoa,
that's
I'm
not
sorry.
true.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's with corporate law, once you're a corporate entity, and this is for any type of business, once you're a corporate entity, even having a phone call, you have to handle very differently.
But you're still a
It's
journalist. Is this what you're telling
No,
me?
Kotaku's not a journalist. Kotaku's a business. Now, if it was a particular Kotaku writer, but you're saying Kotaku has a channel, that's a completely different thing. That's a business. That's not an individual. Um, Now, let's say a Kotaku writer number 7 wants to, review this and get benefits through his YouTube channel for doing that. Yes, those waters are very, very muddy, but I can't think of a single YouTuber whose opinion I trust that would ever write for Kotaku. So that's what I'm saying. But
Well,
yeah,
they'd
for
want
if
to.
that
Go ahead.
no, I was going to say, but if it has that business's name on it, it's different. If it's the individual writer, then it's a different conversation. But if it's that business's name, then they have to be very careful what they do.
I'll
Right.
agree that a corporate is different from an individual, but if the base argument is that because these personalities or whoever is uploading the video isn't a journalist, how does that not apply if Polygon uploads a
No,
video about Shadow of Mordor? Is
no.
I
It's
guess what I'm
it's
asking.
it's what you're dealing with here is you're dealing with representation. Okay, like let's use the example of Kotaku writer. Kotaku uploads a video about Shadow of Mordor under Kotaku's banner, right? Under their channel or whatever, right? And then let's say we have Kotaku writer who also uploads a video, but if it's not branded by Kotaku and it's not being advertised as being representative of that company's stance in regards to the title, so on and so forth, then that's that guy's opinion. It's like the stuff we've talked about with Milo over the past week. Like he writes for Breitbart, and he also has his own blog where he talks about different stuff. Like just because he's necessarily writing something on the blog doesn't mean it represents the views of Breitbart in all instances. And again, now we're getting into very muddy waters, like just as far as some things here and different little technicalities and things like that. But I wanted to give an example of I've seen this exact argument happening here before, but not on a huge monetization scale. In the classic arcade gaming scene, there's a guy named Patrick Scott Patterson. He goes by PSP, and he, shows up to pretty much all these events, like all these big game events. He's always at E3, so on and so forth. And he writes on his own site, and he talks about, like, one thing he did was sit down and he talked about, all these great women in gaming and so on and so forth. And what ended up happening was people got mad at him because, like, a story had come down the line, and people were talking about it in the community, and they were like, hey, how come you didn't write anything on this? How come you didn't report on this? So on and so forth. And he's like, I'm not a journalist. I'm a media personality. At no point have I ever advertised myself as a journalist. I'm just here. I'm a gaming personality. I show up and I talk about whatever the hell I feel like talking about because that's what I'm here to do. Like, he even writes articles on the Examiner every now and again, but he's been very clear and upfront that he's not a journalist in any capacity, and he's just going to talk about whatever the hell he feels like talking about. But people really got mad about this. And that's the thing that we have to keep in mind. It's, if someone says, I'm a journalist, or I'm a critic, then we should be holding them to that standard of which they've made that proclamation. But if these YouTubers and other media personalities if they don't say, hey, I'm this or I'm that, then they don't need to be held to that standard. Now, I realize that there could be a hole in that, and, well, if you're fulfilling all the things that would make you a journalist, then you should be held to that standard. Like, you just can't easily get away with saying, well, I don't label myself as that, therefore I'm not. I understand that that's an argument that someone could use, but I'm just saying, in general, that's kind of how it's dealt with.
Okay. Well, I guess my approach is that if we're basing it upon the ethics of the website themselves, a lot of these ethics very clearly spell out written content or writers in general, and that you could, in theory, bring on someone else, slap a silly title like video manager, video review, whatever the hell, on this person, and essentially eliminate him from the clause because of very specific wording. Like, you can't do written content that promotes a product, but if it's not written content that's hosted on the site itself, I don't understand these laws in general. But I do agree with the general idea that, well, I disagree with you guys actually about the personalities. A lot of these personalities, they got there through being a personality, right? And if you're a company that is paying this personality to say a very specific thing, you're no longer a personality in my eyes. You are literally a commercial that is immune to ad block. And if people trust these personalities, and in some cases there doesn't need to be disclosure. Outside of the United States, you don't need to disclose any sort of promotion deals. That sounds fucked up to me. I can argue that I agree that it is illegal, and I'm not trying to approach it from the angle of saying that it's illegal and it should be wrong because of that. It's more of I think it's morally wrong.
Well, how do you feel about David Beckham,
David Beckham,
the football player? Or, excuse me, soccer player?
Like how you promote random whatever the hell?
I mean, I had to do a paper for my journalism class this last week, and he was my big example. He advertises for Rolex, his own personal lines, H&M, Nike, Adidas.
Let's say Rolex.
Okay, anybody. But I mean, he advertises for everybody.
I'll talk about David Beckham and Rolex. Is that all right? Well, David Beckham got where he was through being famous soccer player, correct? Or am I thinking of a different Beckham?
Well, no, I mean, yeah, but he's really pretty. I mean, let's be honest. We still talk about David Beckham because he's gorgeous.
Watch sales. I mean, he didn't get where he was through reviewing watches, correct? And he didn't get there from having such a very sparkly personality when it came to discussing watches. He didn't, live stream watches, or as far as I know, he didn't do these things. And that's where I think there's a big difference. With like Nike shoes and stuff, I agree that there's a bit of a difference, but in that the cleats are much closer to soccer, which is what he was about. But I still think there's a big enough gap as opposed to a personality that does reviews about games, live streams video games, and is 100%, well, not always 100%, but talks about video games. And I think that's where a key difference is. If somebody wants to pitch in, go for it. And I fully admit, I understand I'm the odd man out. So
That's okay. We still heart you. I'm gonna let you guys know I'm still here. I'm gonna stay on later. You guys are. If it sounds weird, let me know, or you hear weird sounds. I'm actually
you hear
shaving my.
golf, let me
I'm shaving my legs while we're streaming. So.
know.
Oh my.
Our viewer count just went through the roof.
So.
Right, like 400 followers later.
But yeah,
She's
like.
shaving her legs, you guys.
I'm
get
totally
here.
I think that might be a fetish for somebody, not for me. I'm glad that I have good balance. But I'm here, headset on, mic in place. I just might take me a minute to hit the unmute button. So if you're like, "Hey Remy, like count to 5," and I'll be back.
If we hear buzzing.
All right.
Okay. Well, someone continue then in her place.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that you're going to disagree with that. But yeah, that's just kind of where I stand on it. I observe it and I'm like, yeah, we've seen this before. It's a different medium or media, but it's the same stuff we've always seen. If I won't disagree. I think that just now, if you're asking about ethically, should they always disclose if they're being told that, or should they always disclose if they're being, paid to endorse a thing or promote a thing? Yeah, sure. I mean, if you just want general public trust, yeah. Do you like, by the way, I've been asked to kind of give my, to endorse this product or whatever it is, and here's what it is. Yeah, it's just, like you said, it's about the moral problem. It's about not looking like a sketchy person, That's all. So I understand that point. Fine. I'm just saying that they aren't held to the same standard as a journalist or as a professional critic because they are neither of those things. But it's not wrong for people to want to have beefs with just how things have gone so far. No, I'm not going to argue that. I mean, hell, you can be mad at anything,
And no, I think you have a great point where it's become status quo. I mean, it does happen in other industries. I think a better example than Beckham would have been insert actress plus makeup or whatever the hell. And, I would even be like, all right, well, I don't really see a big issue with that. I mean, I guess it matters more because I'm a gamer as opposed to someone who enjoys makeup. So I can see that point. And I agree that there's nothing
Never
illegal
trust
happening here.
endorsements for makeup. It's all a lie. If you guys suddenly decide you're into makeup, it's totally a lie. Nothing works out the way they say it's going to. It's never okay.
Right. It's no different than being a cover girl. Like, same thing in concept. Like, oh, okay. Like, it's just one of those things. So I think that's why there's no uproar behind it, because everyone's like, yeah, we've seen that for years. Like, what are we talking about here?
Did you want to chip in, Adeel?
People in the chat, can somebody tell me what happened with Rogue? Is he okay? I can't get on Twitter because, shower. So, is he okay? I'm just worried and making sure everybody's safe. They're kind of
I'm
freaking
sure
out a
he's
little bit.
fine.
Yeah, I'll go find out.
I think he's making his official statement, but let's hear from Adeel.
Okay.
Yeah, like, that's how I feel. Like, I don't expect... Like, I understand your point about them being walking commercials, but even then, and how, because they were doing something or representing something, it might seem a bit controversial. I get that point. It's just, again, if you truly care about the product, you need a... Like, you're not going to... If you truly care about product and you want to find out more about it, you will probably go to somebody who's an expert on that topic, if you're a specific enthusiast. And from that standpoint, which is why I personally think journalists in general should be... I think this is... If journalists were doing this, I would be a lot more offended than if YouTubers are currently doing it.
Well, I would be offended regardless, and there's someone out there who agrees with me. Eric Kane, at least. But another thing I think we need to consider is the publishers or the PR, the marketing teams or the PR firms themselves. They really don't give a shit what you are. It doesn't matter if they're bloggers. It doesn't matter if they're journalists. It doesn't matter if they're fucking dinosaurs. What matters is that they have a fan base and that they can influence that fan base to purchase their product. And when the next battleground becomes YouTube and YouTube individuals, I feel like there's a very real threat of us just journalism, corrupt journalism or whatever, just passing the torch on to YouTubers. Call me crazy or whatever. And I just disagree with that. I just don't like the idea. And I feel like you are not a personality if you are literally being paid to say a certain thing about someone. And I would stretch that to, like Dan Marino or whoever. If I see him in a commercial and he's telling me about how great Arby's is, I'm not going to legitimately believe that he thinks Arby's is amazing. Like, I understand that it's a marketing strategy.
Dude,
Right.
Arby's is amazing.
Arby's is amazing.
Arby's
We
is
all
the
know.
jump off. Yeah, that's hot.
Okay.
All right, we
But,
can all agree
like,
on Arby's.
But that's beside the point. It's like I understand what you're getting at, but I'm just saying if you want to pick that fight, you've got a huge fight to pick because it's more about games. Like it's people are gonna, if you were to take that stance, they're gonna say, what about this? What about all these other industries that do it? And they're gonna want to expect you to fight against that in every other industry. So if you're picking just video games to make that argument on, like, you've got a hell of a road ahead of you. And all I can say is it's okay. It's an accepted practice. It's a known practice. Like, obviously it was really, really bad at one point in time, and that's why laws were specifically made to say here's the things that you can and can't do. It's just like with the FTC, the FTC says, hey, if you're receiving some kind of compensation, and this is the important thing, like when I say there are laws, I literally mean there are laws against this. The FTC says if you are given some form of compensation for this, you have to disclose it. Now, if you wanted to go, again, to use an argument, if you want to go pick some fights, you need to go find every person that's not actually doing the disclosure that they're supposed to do, according to the Federal Trade Commission. That's something that you should be looking at.
And I understand this, and I want to just chime in really quickly. This law doesn't apply to people outside of the United States. So in theory,
that's true.
He could be taking this money. I don't think he is, but he could be doing this in theory. But go on with your point.
No. You make a good point. Yeah, it doesn't apply to people outside of the United States, but we know that quite a few of those personalities are inside the United States now, and I would be looking at those people in particular, so to speak, and say, hey, are you on the up and up? Are you on level? But I don't think you're going to be able to change this one. It's not anything different than what's been an established practice for, God, probably going on 50 plus years. Like, it's just there. It's accepted that people are gonna be paid to use their position as a media personality to endorse a product or to hype a product and all this other stuff. I mean, let's look at it this way. How is it any different than all the celebrities that showed up in the World of Warcraft commercials from a couple of years back? There was William Shatner, there was Aubrey Plaza, Mr. T, all that. Do you honestly believe that they actually sit down and play World of Warcraft and roll deep? Like, maybe Aubrey Plaza does, but I don't think the Shat is getting up on there, running raids on the Sunwell. That's all I'm saying. But he got paid to, like, by the way, hey, you should be playing this shit.
Yeah, but the difference here, I think it's a key difference, is there is that general. Well, we'll take the World of Warcraft commercial with Shatner in it. Like, everyone, I think there's a very general agreement that, okay, we know William Shatner doesn't play World of Warcraft, but we don't have that ignorance or that truth to hold to these personalities because they are so embedded so deeply in what they cover, which is video games. Let's say
I think you give consumers too much credit, honestly.
give consumers too much credit.
Well, I mean, because I talk to people who think Kardashians really wear Kardashian clothes. Like, what? Like, not to say that women are poor consumers, but just my female friends like to talk about shopping, and people really buy into this stuff. They really think that the Beckhams wear their cologne. I can guarantee you they don't. The product is not high quality. Um, but these endorsements, people really buy into this stuff. It's really Marky Mark. I don't think he's still called Marky Mark, but when he was doing the CK1 ads and things like that, people were like, I'm wearing what this guy who is built like an Adonis is wearing. Um, People really do trust advertising. That's why advertising is so effective.
Well, I think that can make it worse sometimes, but let me bring it back to this specific example.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take the World of Warcraft commercial. I personally, me and Remy can disagree with this. I think that most people can look at that commercial and be like, all right, look, most World of Warcraft players or gamers in general can look at that and be like, all right, look, Shatner really doesn't play WoW, or he's not that into World of Warcraft. Maybe he's played it. But when someone like Total Biscuit is who he is in the gaming scene, doing way more successful than these established outlets, I believe that there are people who turn to him and trust what he says. But if he can do this, and if he is able to, or if he does, take money to promote a product and agree to a contract where he very much is limited to saying nothing but good things about a product, and he doesn't have to disclose that to the consumers, I think that's a betrayal of trust. And do you think, is that standard still? Even
Well,
though we believe that, in general, that he is about gaming and that we should trust his opinion?
I'm glad you asked this question. There's a certain amount of built-in assumption on some of this stuff. Okay,
I agree.
like let's move away from the Shatner thing. Let's find something more comparable. Let's say I talked about Michael Jordan before. Obviously, Michael Jordan has his own shoe. There are plenty of NBA players that have had their own shoe, but this is kind of an example that works well. Like Michael Jordan advertises for the shoes that are branded after him, but obviously people buy shoes because they want to emulate the people that they like or that they admire, and they're like, well, if Jordan wears Jordans, I also want to wear Jordans because that'll maybe make me a better basketball player or whatever.
Maybe a better
Just
game.
basic psychology, right?
Yeah.
And it's just when people see those ads, they already know that they're getting paid for that. Everyone talks about, oh, Tiger Woods, got an endorsement deal, or he lost an endorsement deal. I think all that you're seeing, and I think this is really key, it's just that you're seeing it happen in a new media, and you're just watching all this stuff that's happened, that's existed in old media forever, and just old established industries and so on and so forth. It didn't bother anyone years ago because they've already been through what we're doing right now. And so now you're saying, oh, well, these YouTube personalities are really getting big. YouTube is a place where people can rise to fame and do all this other stuff. And, of course, there's all kinds of different YouTubers that get involved in all kinds of different stuff. Some are doing comedy. Some are doing how-to videos. Or you have stuff like Man at Arms where they forge tons of weapons and then destroy crap with it. And just this instance happens to be someone who plays video games on YouTube. And someone's saying, holy crowd, you have a huge audience, you have a lot of influence, we would like to pay you to promote something that you're already doing anyhow. It's just like, to go back to the Michael... I was going to say, take it back to the Michael Jordan thing. It's like, oh, Michael Jordan plays basketball. A lot of people show up to see Michael Jordan play basketball. Hey, we want to make a shoe and have your endorsement of it, because we think we'll sell more shoes that way. And he's like, okay. It's just we're seeing it happen in a new media for the first time, and I think we're just seeing a reaction to it. But I think people are overreacting to something that's old as dirt.
Do you think it's a betrayal of trust in the case of Total Biscuit if he were to go through with such a deal and he didn't have to disclose it legally?
I think it would be just as you said earlier. You said morally it's kind of sketchy. Yeah, I can understand that someone feel, well, I feel betrayed or I feel let down because I thought that you were doing this because you actually cared, and not having that disclosure, yeah, I would think that would be obviously damaging to their audience. I think it would be in your best interest to just tell people like, yeah, by the way, I'm being paid to endorse this. I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, it doesn't get that much more complicated than that.
And do these commercials officially disclose this, or is it all implied? Is there some text somewhere that reads, "We paid Michael Jordan to specifically do this commercial to promote our product," or is it just implied because it's so ingrained that it's a commercial and we're seeing Michael Jordan talk about Arby's or basketball shoes or whatever?
There's a lot of implied stuff here. That's the thing. There's a lot of things that are implied and a lot of things that are assumed because it's been done for so long. Yes, if you watch a commercial and you're really careful and you watch whatever fine print text shows up at the bottom of the screen, they're going to tell you this stuff. And now you're not going to see that in every commercial, but for the most part, people make sure that that information is available freely for you to know if you go looking in the right place. And yeah, that's just what I think it is. I just think we're seeing this stuff happen in a way that's never really happened before. Like, it's now 2014, man. Video games as a mainstreamed, not going away thing have been around for going on around 30 years or so, right, give or take. And it wasn't like this prior, but now it's clear that it's here to stay, and I think people are just really reacting to that idea.
Okay, so let's assume it catches on like it does everywhere else for gaming then. So what is the point of even watching a review if it is already just widely known amongst, video game personalities that, okay, they do commercials or whatever? Or let's look at anyone who does YouTube personalities in the UK, because I will, and I agree that I think it should be practiced outside the United States as well, that there is disclosure. So I'm glad there's at least that barrier.
I have a better example.
What's up?
I have a much better example.
Okay.
That might bring it closer, because I saw someone say, the Jordan thing might have been a bad analogy. Here's a better way to think about it. Think about, again, rest in peace, Robin Williams and Zelda Williams. They were in advertisement for the Ocarina of Time remake.
Yeah.
Or think about Beyonce, who was doing advertising for the, I think it was, God, what color pink is it? Was it rose pink? I think it was 3DS and Rhythm Heaven. Like, there's the assumption that these people were obviously compensated for their time. Now, they show up in an ad, and it's an endorsement, and they're playing this, oh, this is really fun. And they have big audiences, and the intent is to get people to think that this is really fun and something that you want to purchase. Now, here's what I will say. If someone is a media personality is being paid to endorse a product, and they're saying, if they come out and flat out say, hey, this is a review of this game, that's fucking false advertising. That's a whole different beast. Like, and if that's what's happening, then yeah, I'm going to start taking people's sides. Like, I'm going to be like, yeah, that's kind of messed up, because you're not actually reviewing this thing. You are, in fact, endorsing a thing, and that's sketchy. That's sketchy as hell. And if that is really the crux of the argument, I'd be like, hell yeah, be mad about that. Go off. Like, that's just not. It's not true. That's not actually a review. You're just masquerading that under different terminology. That's a problem. But
what if the contract flat out says that you can't say negative things about the game, and you need to talk about specific points, and you need to focus on the positive thing? Maybe they didn't flat out call it a review, but I mean, that was in the contract according to what Jim Inquisition tells us.
But that's for any kind of promotions. I don't know if I want to. How squicky are you guys when it comes to adult content?
You already talked about shaving your legs, so I think we're
okay,
all right.
That was totally not squicky at all. I used to work in the BDSM industry. I did promotions and events for a particular company, and I had a lot of personal issues with how my company did stuff. Like, stuff was just not set up well. We didn't treat personalities that were coming in to do events well. we didn't necessarily follow city code the way that we were supposed to, did not matter, because in my contract as a hostess, it was to not, you don't badmouth them. So if somebody has a contract to do promotions, then, and I was an independent contractor. I wasn't a direct employee. So it's very similar to how these guys, and the wording of the contract that it looks like that particular YouTuber had. One, somebody needs to talk law with them, and because I think they could have wiggled out of a lot of stuff. But when you're being paid, you don't bite the hand that feeds. You skirt around it. You're not going to lie. I don't expect any of these YouTubers who, even under that particular contract, to lie. You just don't say it. Just like I don't say, oh yeah, we're not supposed to be showing that part of our body, but if the cops show up, we'll put something on.
But what if you're previewing the game and it's buggy as shit? What if Shadow of Mordor was buggy as hell and you're not allowed to talk about any of the bugs or any of the problems? You're only allowed to talk about what is good about the game.
But wouldn't you notice?
Wouldn't
Let's
I
say
notice?
this is somebody whose reviews you watch. If this is a YouTuber you personally trust, wouldn't you notice those holes if you were watching them stream
If
it
I
and they
trust them,
weren't?
I shouldn't have to question somebody I trust just because. I mean, I don't want to have to. I want to be able to trust the people I watch.
Trust no
Is that
one.
something? Okay, I get that, but I want to at least feel a comfort of, okay, well, I can watch this guy and assume that he's not withholding some crazy information that would soil the game completely for me. And there was no alternative. That's what part of the things TV was mad about, was there was no other way to really get a preview copy. He somehow managed it, but
It seems like a lot of people did, though. I don't know. It sounds like there was a few different firms that were doing promotions, and they had, depending on the firm, they had different expectations for who they were giving it to. So I don't know if because like they had the hard-nosed firm approach him just because of who he is or what, but it sounds like not everybody was given the same, um, you know, the same contract that he was offered, or even the one that we saw. It sounds like there's a lot of gray areas with this. I'd like to see more of them, honestly, to see how the different ones are worded.
as would
Right.
I.
Right. That's really what it comes down to. There's a lot of gray stuff here. This is not a black and white issue. This isn't as simple as there's a clear breach of your ethics in journalism, where you can just point straight at this, point over there and say, hey, by the way, you're supposed to be doing this and you're not doing it. Stop it.
This isn't the cow says moo,
Yeah, it's all very gray and kind of nebulous, and it all depends what comes to light. I mean, I guess people are mad about it, but and yeah, just as you said, they're just withholding copies from anyone who's not a someone that they can't trust to endorse. I mean, and you have to look at this from the business end. Of course, they're going to say, hey, by the way, if you find a bug, you don't talk about that. Why?
Oh,
because that's what they're in the business of trying to sell a product, and they want to make sure that it's going to be in the best light possible.
This is a genius move on behalf of the companies, and I applaud them for being able to do this. And if it becomes mainstay, they have hit a fucking gold mine, because there is a lot of popular individual personalities out there. And if you can pay a single personality $1,000 to do this deal, I mean, how many copies do you need to sell of the game to get that money back? And then look at how many views their videos get. And then think about how many videos they're contracted to do with you. And then think about the stream. Like, how many sales are you making? It's a fucking genius deal. I mean, if it's $1,000, which we don't know the amount as far as I know, but it would take, 20 copies at $60 to at least cover the cost of, paying them. That's easy. If you're getting 1 million views on your video, if you're getting 100,000 views, I think you could get. I think it could be within that ballpark, because Boogie didn't say exactly, but he was saying, this isn't like 100,000, this isn't like 10,000, so I would say it's under 5,000. I think is where I would put the dart, but I could be wrong.
And as far as the trust thing goes that you were talking about, here's the thing: that's caveat emptor. That's buyer beware. Like, if you show up to a personality's YouTube channel or whatever, and they clearly say that they're a personality. And you're like, well, I want to feel like I can trust that person. Well, if the trust is important to them, the trust of their audience, they'll say, by the way, I'm not going to take deals like that, or I'm not going to get involved in that kind of shit because that's matters to me. Like, you've got to align yourself with people who are going to represent things in the manner of which you expect them to, rather than just thinking that all these people are going to be held to the same standard. I mean, it does come back to the whole Gamergate problem with journalistic ethics, is that there is actually a fucking standard in place, and a lot of people aren't following that, and so people can be mad about that. But when it comes to endorsements and things like that, it's a hell of a lot, kind of a looser. It's a looser situation that's got a lot of different variables and things like that. And these people, it's really, if you look at YouTube, it's not that different from just a generalized television show with just someone that you like, and they're just like, oh, here's some stuff. You should buy this stuff because this is kind of cool.
Your favorite show with your favorite personality.
Right. It's not really all that much different from that, and so that's why I'm kind of taking the position on this that I am, based on what I know. Now, if new evidence or different things come to light, my opinion could change. Absolutely. Like, that's just logic and reason and being rational. But just based on what I've heard, I don't see the big issue here.
Personally, if I might chime in.
No, go ahead. You haven't said anything for a while, so go ahead, Adeel.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, the best way to protect yourself as a consumer, I understand you take the words of a certain YouTube personality to high merit, but the thing is, what you need to understand is you need to act as a responsible, educated consumer. Don't just take one guy's word for it. Yes, it's very easy to do that, but we need to remind ourselves, hey, there might be different opinions. We might need to, for example, if a game catches my eye and it's promoted by a YouTuber, what I usually 95% of the time I look up what other people have said about that. This way I'm more informed about the problems with the game, the pros of the game, and a variety of different opinions regarding that game as well. So, I think the best way to protect yourself from something like this, an endorsement deal or of some sort, is just be an active consumer. Just be educated. Get multiple sources of opinion.
Yeah, and I agree that there is definitely a huge degree of buyer beware, because within the states you do need to legally, be upfront about that, and I'm glad, because then at least when I watch a video, and hopefully this belief spreads to everyone else who watches these videos, that if you see this promotion or see this disclosure, automatically in your mind be fucking cautious as hell.
What just came to mind, actually? Who is it that watches YouTubers? Is it gaming enthusiasts? Do casual? I hate the term casuals, especially in the fighting game community. But do casuals really watch, the YouTubers as a guide to what games are going to be good?
If they're killing the journalists outlets or the blogger outlets, they're getting views. There's lots of questions to be asked, like how many of these views can actually turn into a converted sale. That's already fucking hard enough to even begin the track, right?
Because just thinking about having this sort of silly and nonsensical celebrity endorsements, that's not being marketed to somebody who already plays WoW. That's not being marketed to somebody who already spends a good amount of their money a month on gaming. That's to people that they're trying to draw in because they recognize Shaq and recognize Shatner and go, oh, that's a celebrity I know. I'm going to go do what they do. So I wonder, with the shift towards YouTube and that kind of thing, I guess it's more evidence of the fact that gamers aren't dead. We're just sort of taking over the world.
Hopefully. I'd rather gamers than something else.
For real.
All right. Well, we'll agree to disagree. I think there's great points brought up on both sides. I
Absolutely.
hope that the disclosure is spread to countries outside of the United States. I will say that.
Yeah, it definitely does sound like there's a lot more to be explored, and so I'm gonna just keep myself even more abreast on this topic because it sounds like there's a lot more layers to this than I initially believed. And like I said, yeah, I mean, I could change my stance on that based on new information found or discovered and all that other stuff, but I'm just kind of surprised overall.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm glad we had a conversation about it instead of some cause being brought onto a stream, all that nonsense. But
Like,
no, what's up, Adeel?
oh, I was going to say, like, calling each other misogynist shit babies or some shit.
Well, I'm gonna post that about Oliver when we get off the show.
Yeah, he's
No,
misogynist.
it's going down. It's
Yeah, it is.
I just got to figure out how to coin it. Is it going to be YouTuber Gate or is it going to be Streamer Gate? Some shit's going to happen. I swear to God.
I mean, hey, if the traditional press goes down, the next target to be skeptical of is YouTubers, right? Or hopefully Spellsfired.com. Hopefully, I can have my own gate, Spellsfired gate or something. But no, is there any other comments anybody wanted to make about the whole Shadows of Mordor or YouTubers in general agreeing to these contracts?
No.
Not really. I pretty much said these guys are far more educated on the topic, so like that's why I only chimed in when necessary. But yeah, I've said everything I wanted to say.
I've tried to reach out to Jim Sterling, but I guess he didn't want in on this. I tried getting Eric Kane too. Nobody wants to help me argue this. No, that's fine. What's up?
It's because we're not as popular.
Well, maybe these viewers can help me out.
Well,
Speak for yourself. Everybody loves me.
Did you mention I was going to be on here with you?
I tried. I mean, that was the first thing. I was thinking about just calling it the Oliver stream. And just going with that.
I mean, well, it may have helped. I mean, he does want me to be on Game Crush next week, so.
Put in a good word for me. But no, I
I'll
look
have
forward
to.
to it.
Anyway, next topic, Captain.
All right. Well, I didn't have any other topics lined up, but if everyone in the chat wants to hear more, and if you guys are the guests, you want to talk more, we can discuss more of anything, really. I mean, there's been...
I risked major blood loss to stay here longer, so we should really have more topics.
Okay. Because Death was tempted, and I want to please Death, because I know what happens if you piss him off in Persona 3. Let's talk about... What is the new... What's up?
No, I was gonna say Death in Persona 3 is a bitch.
Death in anything. I mean, that's the main character in the Castlevania games, too. That guy's... He'll fucking kick your ass if you're not ready for him.
Yeah, he ain't no joke in Persona 3. He'll fuck you up.
Yeah,
that's the one thing that made that game scary. Like, Persona 4 is all lighthearted and chipper and yellow and let's feel good about ourselves and all smiley faces. Right, it was, that shit was fucking Scooby-Doo. That's fucking Persona 4 in a nutshell. Yuna Arakami is goddamn Fred and God, I don't even know who the fuck Daphne is, but that shit was Scooby-Doo. That's what it is. Persona 3 was just goddamn a nightmare fuel. They're like, okay, here's what's happening to motherfuckers, right? And you're like, okay, what's up? Tell me about the game. You know, you sitting in front of the TV 3 inches away from it because you don't care about your eyesight. And they're just like, all right, here's what's happening. Every month after the full moon hits, a bunch of motherfuckers get depressed. And they just sit there and just waste away till they die. And you're like, Jesus Christ, that's horrible. Oh, it gets worse. Come midnight, everybody shows up in coffins and there's blood, guts, and ass everywhere. And there's fucked up shit with like 82 arms that comes out and starts. You're like, Jesus fucking Christ, I want to get out of this city.
It was
fucking fly.
The very beginning, Yukari is like committing fucking suicide. You're like, holy fucking shit, I just bought this game and a fucking girl's shooting herself in the goddamn head. And P4 is like, well, I'm new in town, and I'm gonna stay with my uncle. Fuck that. Are we all in agreement that P3 is better? Agree more.
Personally, I like P3 story better, P4 characters better.
Now, see, you just fucked my whole brain up, man. As soon as Miss Three Dog walks in the door, I'm be like, we just figured out that Persona 4 is fucking Scooby-Doo, and that's why you don't like it. And she's gonna flip the fuck out.
Yep.
I mean, look at it. Teddy, how is he any different from Scooby?
He isn't, man. He might be Scooby. Honestly, I kind of want to see a crossover. Or maybe like a Scooby-Doo episode where they bring on the cast of Persona 4. Because they had like the Harlem Globetrotters on and shit.
Mm-hmm.
I
Scooby-Doo
like
meets
it
the Harlem
during streams
Globetrotters.
when we randomly figure out the true deep meaning of things like this. Like, this isn't the first time this has happened on a stream, and I think these are beautiful moments.
Have you played the Persona games, Remy?
I have, and so has my demon. I prefer 3.
Is Demon another name for your child? Or?
Yes,
Okay.
that's her internet name. She is the demon, and for when I start getting into kid stories, I try to avoid them doing stuff with you guys. But yeah, it's well earned. She is the demon, but she and I both prefer 3 by a good long
I think
stretch.
it's universal here. All right.
Okay, now here's something that's fun. Everyone
What's up?
everyone prefers Persona 3, right? Here's a problem. There was a plagiarism claim that nobody followed through on that has bugged the fuck out of me for years. Like most of the plot of Persona 3 is ripped off. And if it's not directly ripped off, it's a coincidence. Well, it's a pretty goddamn fucked up coincidence.
What did it rip off?
There's a book. I want to say it's called The Midnighters, and it is 100% the core elements of Persona 3. Yeah.
Have you read The Midnighters though?
I haven't read through them completely. I had a friend who showed me passages and stuff from the books and was like, this sounds an awful lot like Persona 3, and I just looked at the stuff they pointed out. I was like, whoa, that's fucking weird. Like, it's the same concept of the midnight hour and all that. Now, of course, they've added their own Persona flavor. Like, don't get me wrong on that. Like, Persona's been around. It's been around forever. Or not Persona, but just the core series, SMT, which
SMT.
is, just Megami Tensei itself is based on a book, actually. But it is really weird how the core interesting elements, the unique features of Persona 3 are really, really lifted from that. And I'm just wondering why no one followed up on that.
I think it's though that they more lift from common myths and things like that more so than I think that's not the only, the Midnighters isn't the only comparison that can be made.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of along those lines of, when there's a whole spur of books that come out at the same time that are very similar and everybody's like, oh, they ripped off this person or that person, or a bunch of movies come out with the very same themes. There's only so many stories to tell, unfortunately. It's starting to seem like in the world.
Yeah, that seems a little too close from what I've heard. I haven't read this book and I haven't heard about it. This is news.
Let me just go ahead and read the summary of it to you guys. You guys judge based on that, okay? It says, in the Midnighters trilogy, individuals born at midnight are able to live within the blue time while in Bixby, Oklahoma. These individuals are referred to as Midnighters, as well as the ability to travel within the blue time. Each Midnighter is gifted with superhuman abilities. It is implied in Blue Noon that a Midnighter's power will not work outside of Bixby. However, this remains unconfirmed, as none of the Midnighters leave the town during the course of the trilogy. Along with their superhuman abilities comes the disadvantage of being highly sensitive to intense light. And that's just the base summary, but you can see where those two plots really interact with each other.
I think there's a little bit of vagueness, like supernatural powers. Like, okay, you could apply that to a lot of things, but
and the whole being born at
Hour.
Being born at midnight and all of that. My kid's a big mythology nerd, more so than I am, so she would be a lot more helpful at this point. But that's a really common factor. Like, that's something that even in paganism, if you're born at the midnight, like on the minute at midnight, it's supposed to make you more attuned with all of this sort of stuff. So I think yes, they are really similar. Do I think that they read the Midnighters and lifted it? No, I think they were probably both borrowing from the same source material.
It's possible. It's completely possible. The reason I brought it up, but I'm saying I still find it really interesting that no one ever followed up on this thing. Like, It's just it's weird. Okay, like let's see. Persona 3 came out, and let me Google that real quick. I want to say Persona 3 came out in what, 2007, 2008. Yeah, it came out in Japan in 2007. Midnighters came out in 2004. So there's a 3-4 year gap right there. It just looks really bad. That's all that I'm saying. But what you're saying about how, yeah, they're just taking from common mythologies and stuff. No, yeah, you're pretty much right. Like,
Yeah.
that's Megami Tensei in a nutshell. Not a lot of people know about that, surprisingly, but just the first digital Devil story and all of that was written in the 80s, and there's actually an anime that came out then, just based on the first game. And what's really interesting is the original Megami Tensei game more or less is the same plot as Persona 4. It's just dealing with Izanagi and Izanami and the different things like that. It's just Persona 4, I guess you could say, is kind of a different telling of the same type of story.
Yeah.
I mean, the American release versus the Japanese release video game, that's something to consider too. But go ahead, Adeel.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, like Persona 4. I actually researched the Megami Tensei series after I played through Persona 4, because that was my first Megami Tensei experience. But yeah, I researched it. Like Megami Tensei 1 and Persona 4's plots are extremely similar. And there can be overlap. Like, it's pretty common for stories to borrow off each other.
Yeah, definitely. When are you gonna play Soul Hackers, Oliver? What the hell?
Man, as soon as I stop being poor and I can just go, fuck it, I'm going to go out and pick up Soul Hackers. That's like one of the big titles that I've missed, and I kind of pride myself on at least owning, like, or not even owning, just playing every Western released SMT title. I mean, SMT, just overall, just the whole franchise and everything that's based on has been really, really, really important in my life. Like, I hate to say it, but Persona, just the first Persona, Revelations Persona, which is still on my shelf right now, that was the first game I ever played that featured a black protagonist. I didn't know what the fuck to do. I was like, oh,
They
there's
changed
a black
that
kid.
in the release.
And everyone's like, we hate that they changed that. I'm like, yeah, well, fuck you, because that made a big difference in my life to not be excluded in that sense, you know? Like, yeah, they made localization changes for America, and I happen to like those changes. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't own the remake re-release of Persona for PSP, because I do, and I played the shit out of that too. I'm just saying that what the changes that people make aren't necessarily bad for everyone. I mean, you look at that, and it's, well, I've got Mark in Revelations Persona, and that was like a huge, huge deal for me. And then I have Barrett from Final Fantasy VII, like a couple years later, and I'm just like, this man looks nothing like me. Like, this doesn't represent me in any way, shape, or form.
There's
But
only
people are
so
gonna think, you know. So it was nice. It was a good experience for me. I mean, I'm an Atlas faithful, so to speak, to make fun of their newsletter, but I am like, I don't review those titles because I care about them too much on a personal level.
Yeah, I love Atlas games too. I'm not gonna lie. So I think we're all weeboos here. I think is the official term.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, look at my freaking display picture.
It's true.
Yeah,
The
it
anime
seems
pictures.
confirmed. Look at my hair. Fuck the picture. Look at my hair. Like,
You gotta get a suit on and take a similar picture, man.
See, now I feel bad that I have a regular ass photo. Like, I'm not even special. I just look.
Dude, you have the most boss smirk ever. What are you talking about? If I could smirk like that, I would use my picture for everything.
Thanks. But yeah, like I'm a giant weeaboo, but I don't like, I'd rather show my actual face.
See, me and the demon both cosplay, and we usually try and match and things like that. So we have characters from Angel Beats that we do, and so she has her display picture as her character that she cosplays, and we're getting ready to switch over to Vocaloid soon. So I might have a different picture next time I stream.
Nice.
Cool.
Oh, that's where your avatar photo is from. Like, that's what I've been trying to figure it out for like almost 2 weeks.
Yeah, totally Angel Beats. I mean, it's so sad, but I absolutely love Angel Beats so much. I am totally a weeaboo. My daughter called me an egg the other day, and she meant it with like the greatest affection. But she was just like, "Mommy, you're white on the outside, but you're pretty yellow on the inside."
I've never heard that slur before, so we discovered it
Mostly,
though.
She's a
Mostly-
creative one.
as I say, mostly I'm just like on the topic of Atlas. I'm mostly annoyed that they sat down and they really put a lot of effort into translating their style, their art style over to a more mature middleware with Catherine. And there was a whole kind of there was an expectation that, yeah, Catherine is to help us kind of get used to these tools and things like that and kind of speed things up. And Persona 5 will be coming out. Well, fuck, how long has it been at this point? Since originally Persona 4 released. That came out in 2009, was it? Late 2009? And now we're going on, 5-6 years later, which is slow, so to speak, in just the current development environment. And I just feel almost a little let down overall. Like Catherine ended up being built on how's it pronounced, Gambaro engine, which surprised the shit out of me because that's the same engine used for Oblivion.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
The engine has received some criticism for the right reasons, but keep going.
And I was just kind of looking at this, and I think one of my personal criticisms, this is where you're actually going to hear me talk about and be critical of Persona. Like, count this down in history because no one ever hears this stuff. Like, I was really irritated with Persona 4 for a multitude of reasons. There was a distinct lack of not even agency, I would say urgency to Persona 4. And they made so many changes to the series. Like, SMT traditionally is kind of hardcore as fuck when it comes to RPGs. Like, when everyone else kept dumbing things down, they kind of slowly ramped the difficulty up. Anyone who sat down and played something like Nocturne, for example, would be like, yeah, that game will fuck you up if you don't have a strategy guide. Like, if you're just throwing yourself at the problem, you're going to be there for a while. You better grab a Snickers or something. And so Persona 4, for me, was kind of a betrayal of their standards, where it's like, oh, everything's easy. You can literally just walk into a dungeon and steamroll it in one night, and then you just spend the rest of the time wandering around being the local pimp. And, with Persona 3, you sit down and you play Persona 3, and again, it's just like the comparison we made earlier. This one is Scooby-Doo, and the other one, just comparison-wise, is like fucking Saw, man. They're like, all right, kid, your parents are dead, motherfucker. You gotta still go to school anyway, get an education. It's like the School of Hard Knocks with Mr. T. And then you show up and no one gives a fuck. They're like, oh yeah, that kid's parents are dead. That's interesting. Get the fuck to your room and go study for the night. And you're just like, Jesus Christ. And you're going to school and these motherfuckers are grilling you in class and everything. You try not to nod off. They're like, hey, what the fuck did I just say about the Edo period? And you're like, I'm American. I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about, man. This doesn't apply to me. And they're like, you failed, motherfucker. Go study. And you just like you're playing this game, and it's just a complete and utter ball buster. And then you got your senior classmen, you got Akihiko, you got Mitsuru, and they're like, you need to take your punk ass to Tartarus and go fuck that guy up. I need you to get all the way up here before it turns this date. And by the way, you need to join a sports club, or you ain't nothing but a punk motherfucker. I'm like, Jesus Christ, there's so much social pressure here.
Even when you first started, Mitsuru's like, man, you fuckers can't handle fucking floor 2. Just stick to floor 1. You bastards can't handle it. Just
right,
stick to floor 1.
It's just the comparison of, like, it's the comparison of sitting down and listening to, I don't know, something like, what's that one boy band? It's like paying attention to NSYNC. Like, Persona 4 is NSYNC. Persona 3 is like the fucking Wu-Tang Clan. Like, you're just walking into a bad neighborhood, and it just kicks your ass. It kicks the ever-loving shit out of you. You really had to focus on maintaining your schedule. You're like, I got 2 days this week that I can go to Tartarus, and come hell or high water, I'm going to fucking murder everything I see. You didn't fuck around with death. Like,
Yeah, people
you
got
didn't stay
sick,
on the
too.
floor. You know, the second your operator's like, by the way, some bad shit's about to pop off, you're like, I got to get the fuck out of here. Right now. Not now. Right now. And you were gone. That was it. Like, sending people off to investigate the rest of the floor was an actual viable strategy. And having to deal with, people are like, oh, I hated the tired mechanic. Being tired mattered. It was just like, stop
Yep.
pushing it so hard, or you're going to fuck yourself over.
Did you like not being able to control your teammates? I actually enjoyed the strategies and giving strategies.
I like both systems. Like, I liked being able to, like, if you played, Persona 3 Portable, that was fine because they went ahead and implemented that change, and it's like, oh, this is nice. But even P3P suffered from some of the dumbing down that was going to happen in Persona 4. So the reason I went on that whole rant is I hope that in Persona 5, I hope they actually completely ditch the systems that are in place for 3 and 4. And in fact, I think that's what's going to happen. Now,
You think they will go back to 2 and 1?
No, I think it's going to be something completely new that nobody's seen before, and I think it's going to be very divisive. The reason I believe this to be the case is, have you noticed how goddamn quiet they are about that game? That game is coming out, what, in a year's time from now? It's winter of 2015, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But, like, when Persona 4 was coming out, they had material out stateside. Like, you could, see your anime intros, and they were actually releasing information. They've been absurdly quiet about what they're doing with 5. They're not even showing anything in engine. Nothing. I think it's a little weird. Persona 3 came out, did really well, did way better than expected. And then, within a year's time, boom, by the way, Persona 4 is coming out. And they just made new art assets and just kept using the same engine and mechanics. Like, it was just literally, they just copied and pasted something new, a new skin over the same stuff from 3. But I think Atlas is smart enough to know that, to not try to strike lightning 3 times on the thing.
Yeah. I mean, and to echo what you were saying, even with their other releases, like with Eternate and Odyssey and SMT4, I don't know if they casualized that down or what. They were very revealing with those games.
No, SMT4 is pretty brutal in my opinion. Like, I would say that would be interesting to see a completely new system in Persona 5. If they take out the social link system, I think that might actually cause a bit of a controversy and make it like a bit of a controversial. I mean, not controversial, but like there would be a huge argument within the Persona fandom. Like, I personally love the social link system. I like it better than whatever they had in 1 and 2.
Here's what I think about that. You brought up a good point, because people really like the social link thing. Here's, like, when I say it's going to be very different, I don't mean like they're going to toss away the social links, but I mean just the overall general game flow and structure. Like, I don't think it's going to be the same as 3 and 4. If you'll notice that Persona 1 and 2 were really not that different from SMT proper. Like, okay, so let's say you've got someone that's got the persona of Jack Frost, and you've just got Jack Frost the demon sitting there in Nocturne. It's not really that different when they're both doing attacks and doing that stuff. It was just a difference of appearance between the two games in the series.
Yeah,
and
but you
so,
could use guns.
Yeah, you could use guns and,
Keep guns.
and that stuff. But I'm just, you know what I'm talking about. What is a gun
Yeah, I
but
know.
a different damage type? It's pierce. Like, it's so they made I think they went to that huge shift in Persona 3 that's just completely different from the first 3 Persona titles, to make it more standalone by itself and not just, here's the same crap. Like, now you actually have a kind of a split in the fan base. You have people who will continue to play the SMT proper series, and you've got people who are really committed to Persona and these new, very unique mechanics that you're not going to find in the rest of the main series. It's kind of like why Raito Kuzunoa is so interesting, because it's a real-time action game as far as combat flow goes. It stands by itself.
Are you suggesting that Persona might not even be, quote, an RPG in the sense of, like, turn-based?
Who knows what the hell they're going to pull off? If
Yeah.
heaven help them if they make it all real time, because I think
First-person
people's
shooter.
fucking brains will melt.
Oh, yeah. I think it's definitely going to be turn-based. As much as I would love to see it go back to something like 2 or 1 where anyone could switch personas, I think that would be awesome. I don't think that's going to happen solely because they're really building up this whole the wild card or the fool, kind of idea of being the one to enter the blue room or the velvet room. I'm sorry.
Room.
They're really building that up,
And as far as general mythos goes, like you said with the wild card, I think that Persona 5 will probably see Philemon show up again in person. He's been missing in action since the end of Eternal Punishment, as far as just manifesting himself in front of someone instead of having Igor do all his talking.
They need to bring him back, and they need to bring back Hitler as a villain.
Oh man, that's why I was so hyped about Persona 4 Arena, because I thought at the end of the first game, it was hyping up Gnarly. I'll just call him Gnarly because I could never hope to pronounce that name.
Isn't it pronounced Nyarlathotep?
I don't even know.
Ridiculous. That name itself is ridiculous. But yeah, I thought it was going to be Nyarlathotep.
You're killing us.
Okay, Gnarly, but
Gnarly, yeah.
I'll just call it Gnarly. Fuck it. But yeah, I thought it was going to be Gnarly, and it wasn't. I was really disappointed because, I feel like if we are comparing Persona stories, I feel like 2 tops out 3 and 4. And, that conflict between Philemon and Gnarly... I keep running.
It's fucking too much, dude. Oh, man.
I actually want to see the battle between Philemon and Gnarly. That would be interesting. To have them show up in the game again.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting, and again, to go back to that, how they lift stuff from stories. Here's why I said I think there's a strong chance that someone sat down and read the Midnighters and said, I could probably make a game around this idea. It's well, look at Nyarlathotep. Well, he's just taken straight from H.P. Lovecraft. Mm-hmm. If you didn't know that.
Pissed off a lot of Persona fans, man.
Yeah.
But if you're a Persona fan, you should understand that's part of what makes the game so great, at least for me, is that I'm a lit nerd. So I'm a lot of different kinds of nerds, all smushed into one person who's short. But that's, for me, what makes it so great, because it harkens to things that I already enjoy and am familiar with. So if you're really a Persona fan, you should already know that stuff.
And for me, the enjoyment for me, since I just love mythology, I love that shit. I have a whole book here on just, not even a whole book. I have several whole books just sitting here on Greek mythology, and I just sit down and read, literally just read through a tome of this crap for entertainment, just because I love world mythos, and I love folklore, and I love it's basically the world's oldest creepypasta, and all kinds of other ridiculous shit. I can't get enough of it. And to have a whole series that somehow managed to take every fucking mythology ever created, cramming it into one place, and go, oh, that makes sense. That's talent. If you can just take a whole bunch of bullshit, it's like that person that one guy or that one lady or that just one cook that everyone knows, where they're like, man, we don't have anything just easy to prepare and eat. and they're that person that says, hey, let me just get in that kitchen, let me see what's up, and they will take some of the craziest shit and just throw it in a fucking skillet, and you're like, what the hell is this? They're like, oh, it's just made from the scraps of everything in this house, and you're like, it's delicious. What do you call it? I don't know, I just made it up on the spot. They're like, that's what Persona is like. They'll just fucking throw shit at you, and you're like, yes, I like that.
Yeah.
Can I have more? Like, it's such a mind screw how they pull that off. And more importantly, it's, for me, it's the whole reason why I didn't fucking play Pokemon. Like, sorry. Like, everyone just gets pissed when I say that. Everyone's like, oh my god, Pokemon's coming out. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. What are you talking about? Why don't you care about Pokemon? I'm like, because I played something more mature. I just got done telling you about blood, guts, and ass in the school, like, and blood everywhere, and just horror. And you're just, Persona has Pokemon before Pokemon happened. I'm like, I've seen this shit before. I've already played something a lot cooler than this, so it's going to be pretty goddamn hard to convince me to play.
Yeah, I can't stand Pokemon personally. I tried to play it again recently. I just can't. I just don't like the combat. I wish they would make it better.
I like Pokemon.
All right. Well, Adeel wanted to say something. What's up, Adeel?
I was going to say, no, I mean, I like Pokemon, but I've been trying to convince my friends who are into Pokemon to try the Persona series. At the very least, try 4. You know, because, like, it's so similar. Like, I'm pretty sure they'd like it, but the same reasons, like, the logic that most of my friends give me about not wanting to play RPGs in general is because it's just one button. That's what you fucking do in Pokemon. It's just one button to do everything. It's just frustrating. Sorry.
Nah, it's all right. All right, Remy, sell us on Pokemon. Why?
I'm not gonna sell you on Pokemon. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I like my Pokemon. I think that it's part of the reason why I like it is it's kind of mindless. I don't have to think hard to play. It's great for, like, I'm getting ready to get on a train for, I think, 11 hours, and I full out plan to play some Pokemon tonight. Just because that's my go-to. Like, I'm not thinking deep. I'm not going to get any jump scares. I'm not doing anything except collecting these cute, adorable things that make me happy, because I like cute, adorable things. I'm proud of you guys for being comfortable not liking Pokemon. I mean, I get uncomfortable when everybody likes the same thing. I'm like, well, that's weird. So, yay, I know people who don't like Pokemon now.
Yeah, I don't. I like the Pokemon manga, but that's about it. So.
It's really weird to me because it turns into, it's obviously become a cult hit. I mean, clearly. And, oh god, I just realized how fucking old I am. I was like 14 or 15 years old when the first one came out. Jesus Christ.
Man, even I was younger.
Oh god. Like, just really sitting there and thinking about it. And it bugged me to sit there and play Persona that dealt with, especially, you know, being a high school kid, and sitting here and I'm playing a game series that is specifically built around and centered around the issues of a teenage kid. And I'm like, wow, this really speaks to me, you know, this really produces content. And then seeing all my peers off playing Pokemon, and I'm just like, okay, I didn't understand why it took so long for Persona to finally hit its stride and get an American audience, especially when it's just so much of the content was very relevant for us, and it's educational. I mean, you sit down, if you play Persona and you know, you learn about any of the different mythological and folklore characters that have shown up in there, and if it makes you go, is this a real thing? Like, yeah, people made that shit up. And if it makes a kid go, I want to learn more about that, well, god damn it, they've done a great job.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I think I want to start wrapping this up, but if there's anything else you guys want to talk about, just hit me up or bring it out now.
Okay, I would like to say one thing.
Go ahead.
We can all agree the best waifu in the Persona series is Naoto. Let's just be honest. That's all.
I'll agree there.
Nope.
All right, let's kick Oliver off. Let's hear it.
I'm sorry, my Yamano. she's a fucking journalist. That's sad.
That's true.
She's got. Oh God, I'm about to get into some shit. She's got better ethics than most of the shit we've been talking about, and she writes for a magazine called Coolest. Like,
Hell yeah.
oh my God.
She has a persona.
At least she follows through. Like, everyone makes jokes about her outfit, heart boobs and all that, but who cares? Like, they matured their own series forward, and they said, okay, well, we're not dealing with teenagers anymore at that junction in the narrative, and they moved it up to young adults, but it was still about problems. So for me, it was really cool to just watch the series grow up with me, and to just kind of observe the changes that happened with that. But yeah, Maya Amano is, I'm sorry, she's the coolest. Like, even her bad translated self, let's be thinking positive, or let's positive thinking, and all that. Like, fuck Naoto, man. Naoto is.
Oh, now you're going too far.
Oh, come on.
Naoto is terrifying. Like, here's why. No, serious. Here's why.
All right,
Naoto is a problem. Well, when you really look at Naoto, isn't that just basically a femme Raido?
Okay, isn't that the most badass thing ever?
Right.
Well, I think it kind of comes back to the same stuff of what seems kind of cheap. Chie, like, really has no equivalent across the SMT mythos. Like, Chie is Chie. Like, even Eulala from Persona 2, not the same. Eulala was a boxer, and she, obviously had a temper, just as Chie does, but they're two very different people. Whereas Naoto is like, I'm investigating because I'm investigating because I'm investigating.
She's professional, and she's keeping her and shit. You're watering her down.
I've made everyone angry.
You are strawmanning my wafu, or my waifu.
But this actually proved my point. This proved my
Waffle?
point.
What's up?
She's like a waffle now.
Yeah, that's what I call them. I call them wafus.
No, but this actually made my point. Do you see how, like, impassioned I got about certain things, and I had a very divisive opinion, things like that? Now you see why I said I don't review these titles. I'm too biased towards them. It should, like, that's all I can say. Like, I'm really in there. Like, I'm a part of the fan base, and I can't sit down and review those games objectively. I'm not going to be able to tell a consumer, like, here's what you need to know about this game. No, I'm going to be like, it's the best thing ever, and you should buy everything that Atlas makes because it's great. Like, it's not going to happen. So I recuse myself from the series professionally. I'm like, this is the game I play for fun. This is for me. Fuck everybody else. This is the game that I play for me to enjoy because it's been there for over half of my life.
Nah, that's fine. Remy, do you have a wafu or husbando?
I do not. This is a totally new thing to me that I've learned during Gamergate. Because I like anime. I watch a lot of anime, and so my crushes are generally aimed. I don't get crushes on video game characters. I feel really bad. I feel like I need to go out and
You
develop
should
like
feel bad.
I feel like I need to go out I don't know where to start though.
Just say Akihiko, okay?
That's the correct answer.
Protein everywhere.
But yeah, I don't know where to. I mean, in all games, I really thought about this because people keep on the Ask FM thing, keep sending me who is your husbando and who's your waifu, and I'm just kind of like,
Just say
crap.
Akihiko from now on.
Okay, all right, okay, I'll agree with the class. If anybody argues with me, I'm blaming you guys.
I actually want to try out what Akihiko was talking about in Persona Arena 2. Like mixing protein shakes with alcohol. I just want to try it.
Oh God.
Adele, please don't throw up. Please
No,
don't.
actually, I can tell you something about that as a cyclist. No, that's actually not a bad idea. Alcohol is really, really good for carbs, which you need when you're doing any kind of endurance event. So when you're cycling. So believe me, when I say when I go out here and I'm on my bike, I see a lot of drunk cyclists because, well, think about all the carbs that are in beer and stuff like that, and it's fast. They're fast carbs. You can just put them in, boom, and that's gonna put the juice back in your legs so you can keep going. So it kind of makes sense that he would combine alcohol and protein, one for muscle building and the other one for the actual direct energy. It just sounds like a bad idea up front, but no, you would actually get results from that.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's
wouldn't
great.
you get really sick? I'm like a wuss, but wouldn't you get really sick?
No, surprisingly enough. Clearly, I don't mean like drink enough beers to be shit-faced and then get on your bike, but no, like usually these guys like roll around with one or two beers in them, or they'll even have like a specific type of mug that I see them carrying in their rack, their bicycle rack bags and stuff like that. It's weird. I'm like, I don't think you should be operating a motor vehicle, or not a motor vehicle, but operating a vehicle while intoxicated. I think the police will snatch you up for that, and they don't
Aki
care.
said I could.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up. Thanks to all the guests. Thanks to all the people tuning in, listening on the
Thanks,
YouTube
everybody.
and on Twitch. I give a special thanks to Gwen the Lily Knight. If you're on the Twitch, she's the one that's playing Taking the Netsu 3. That's a great game. She's a great streamer. Check her out at Gwen Lily Knight with one L for Lily. And I'm going to go ahead and do a last roll call here and just plug whatever you want to plug. So we got Adeel.
Yeah, I'm just gonna plug my Twitter, twitter.com/livefire940.
Go to the store.
Sounds good. Oliver?
Same thing. It's at Oliver B. Campbell, and I also write books. You can find them on Amazon under Rabbit in the Road and The Twisted World, Verse 1, The Dusk Harbinger.
And I got Remipunx.
Hi, I'm Remipunx. I don't do anything interesting other than shave my legs while streaming.
You can make an audience out of that.
I don't know if I necessarily really want that audience, but I just remind everybody I'm getting ready to get on a train for a very long time, so I'm counting on everybody to be really nice and represent really well for the next 24 hours. If I come back on Sunday and there's fires all over the place, I'm going to be a mad stream mom. So be nice, play well with one another, look out for each other, keep bullshit out of the hashtag. Just for me personally, just if you start to put bullshit in the hashtag, go, you know what, Remy asked me not to do that. So just hear my voice in the back of your head before smack talking.
That sounds good.
And everybody be safe and have a good night.
Okay. This has been your host. I'm Shill Phish at Spellsfired. Spellsfired.com is an upcoming community website where you can write reviews or you can submit your stream, your YouTube account, anything to do with video games. Think 4chan meets Reddit. It's community driven. You guys write the articles. We'll write too. And if you want to get more details about it, you can ask me questions on my Twitter at Spellsfired, or you can email me personally, Shillphish, SHILLPHISH, all one word, at gmail.com. And thanks for listening. And you guys have a great night. There's plenty of other streams going on. I think King of Pole is doing a stream if you like his stuff. I don't, but you're more than welcome to go tune in. And take it easy.